All right, everybody, we are live. We had some technical issues. David Wood apparently doesn't know how to operate a computer.
Hey, I know you've never been to prison, Cameron, but there are rules against snitching.
Oh, sorry.
Rules against snitching.
Sorry. Okay, so
Hey, just so you know, in prison, snitch is lower on the scale than pedophile. So you would actually be in more trouble than the Dawah guys.
David, there's nothing to be ashamed of. All men have performance issues at that age. It's not a big deal.
The computer is not even old.
David just said Cameron is worse than Daniel Kikachu. This is
all right. Bad. So if you guys tuned into this, you kind of know what you're in for. All right, this is a debate review of the recent Hijab Dr. Craig debate, and we're going to be going through some clips. David has actually not seen the debate yet because
I haven't seen 1 second of it, although I have seen some reactions.
Yeah.
What are you laughing
Everyone
at?
else has watched the debate. Everyone else can spare some time to watch it, but
I just love that you come into these streams. You're like, I didn't watch anything. Let's do this.
I assume we're going to be watching some clips. I'll probably watch it because it's a short one, isn't it? An hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah, it's only an hour.
An hour long. Oh yeah, that's something I can watch.
Everyone sitting here on this panel, has watched the whole debate, has seen all of the debate, and all of it, and you have not seen a bit of it. And
no, guys, it's a weird one. It's a weird one where I'm not immediately pressed to watch because for me there are certain debates that are just win-win no matter what happens. Like when I was debating Kenny Bomer on the age of Aisha, guys, the only possible way for him to win would be to so thoroughly trash Islam's most trusted sources that we don't know anything about Muhammad. And I repeatedly gave him that option. Hey, if you're saying that we can't trust your sources, hey, I'll go with you. I'll go with you on that one, right? So, anyway, that situation, it's like it doesn't matter what happens. Either way, I'm happy with the result. If I expose Mohammed for banging a little girl, or if Kenny shows that his sources are completely unreliable, I'd be happy with either of those outcomes. So when it's Mohammed Hijab versus William Lane Craig, well, either Craig crushes. If Craig crushes Mohammed Hijab, well, that's cool. Everyone will be watching it. Everyone will see Hijab get crushed. But Hijab's been having a pretty rough time lately. Everyone going after him, so I wouldn't mind. I really don't mind if Hijab pulls some stunt that gets him, helps him get back to being popular. Because no one wrecks Islam from within more than Mohammed Hijab. So I'm kind of it's kind of a situation where I'm happy with no matter what the outcome is. I think I can see the bright side.
You see, we can't have one live stream with David Wood where we don't mention some sexual perversions within the first 5 minutes. It's just incredible.
You guys are talking about Islam. There's Islam in this topic. No, it's Islam that cannot be mentioned as a topic without bringing up some sexual perversion.
That's true. Fair enough. I apologize.
Okay, so there was a debate. We're going to talk about that debate. In this,
there was a debate.
Who debated? What I was going to start with. Okay, well, first of all, we got a super chat from John 832. Hijab needs philosophical training. To be honest, I think actually that we're going to look at an example that is going to reveal that that's actually the case. But we'll leave that to you, the audience, to determine. We're just going to go through it and then kind of go through.
He didn't understand.
Way to sort of reason.
He didn't understand. What didn't he understand philosophically?
You gotta wait to see.
You'll see causal aspects.
It was causal overdetermination. You're gonna love this one because it was all about philosophy. Causal.
I can tell you something. I can summarize one thing to you, David, just so you understand, and you will agree with me once you see the debate. The majority of the debate was simply Mohammed Hijab misunderstanding and misrepresenting things that William Lane Craig either said in the past or during the debate, and then William Lane Craig repeating himself in trying to clarify it in different ways, and Mohammed Hijab not understanding it and making himself look even dumber. This was almost the entire
he would
debate.
also he would reiterate his point without really responding to what Dr. Craig said in response.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
but he would do it in a way that was very confident and
Yeah, so
he didn't.
In other words, this
to-
is the sort of thing that would be perfect for Hijab's fans because they don't understand anything either. They don't understand philosophical terms. They don't know what's being said, and all they pay attention to is confidence. So they will be thinking, great job. Hey guys, I've been wanting to do a little skit for years. It's just it's like a science, like a cosmology class, and the physicist is explaining like relativity and quantum mechanics, and the Muslims are just laughing the entire time. That's so stupid. That doesn't make no sense. It's so stupid. Newtonian mechanics is all that makes sense. That's why we're Newtonians. and the professor's like, but guys, this is how it works. It doesn't matter if you like it or it makes sense to you. This is how it works. The whole crowd is just laughing the entire time.
You see.
Yeah, so we do have some clips pulled up that we can kind of go through, but what I did want to ask before we get started and look at those clips, what were the overall thoughts on the debate, David? I know that you can't do that because you didn't watch the debate.
I was sleeping. What do you want me to do? Watch it in my sleep? I'm not going to be able to pay much attention.
Dream about it.
You were sleeping. Something this important is going on, and you were sleeping.
I was like, hey, we're gonna watch some clips of it in a couple hours. So there's no rush.
Okay. Hijab has the power of 30 men. Justin Key, Hijab. Well, I can infer. Hijab, Dr. Craig's disagrees with Catholics. I'm shocked. That's what Hijab. That was his argument.
You see,
and
will
David,
he ever recover?
For the first, it was 20 minutes. In the debate, everyone knew that it was an hour long, and the debate is on the coherence of the Trinity. And for the first, at least third of the debate, it was Hijab raising questions about whether or not Craig is a heretic.
Now, look, during a recent debate between Sam Shamoon and Jay Dyer and Daniel Akikichu and that little weasel, so Daniel Akikichu made that whole mistake, this whole issue of accusing Jay Dyer of throwing certain, Catholic figures under the bus and disagreeing with certain Catholic figures. And of course, Jay Dyer, as every knowledgeable Christian, acknowledges, that's totally understandable. I'm not a Catholic, so
yeah,
you shouldn't be expecting this of me. But he didn't get it. Now, I would not expect something like that from Mohammed Hijab, who is expected to be more, well-read and more learned when it comes to, religion, when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to the different branches of Christianity and so on. But he basically did the same thing in this debate to William Lane Craig. He made a big shocker out of the fact that William Lane Craig disagrees with certain figures.
And by the way, people don't understand how like insane this is. Like, oh, you disagree with this other position. Dude, when it comes to Tawhid, Muslims can't even agree on like whether Allah has literal body parts or not. I mean, it's that basic. They can't. I mean, they were slaughtering each other in the past over disagreements of whether the Quran has a beginning, it was created, or whether it's the eternal speech of Allah. And different groups are winning at different times and so on. So you can't really pick an issue in Islam where you can't point to other Muslim groups that think you're nuts for saying that sort of thing. So to then ignore all of that and then go to Christians and say, aha, well, you disagreed with this guy on the Trinity and so on. So you've got a problem here. That's why this is kind of like Hijab's like final dream debate. He's going to be talking about the Trinity where he gets to be on the attack. Doesn't have, because keep in mind, none of these guys anymore will go near Muhammad. They won't defend Muhammad. They won't defend the Quran. They won't do all of that. They all want to sit back and attack the Trinity against someone who's not going to be blasting away at Tawheed and exposing their inconsistency. And that's like the only debates they want to have. You could go to any Dawah booth on the planet. You could go to Speaker's Corner, anywhere. You walk up there, hey, here's 487 topics we can talk. We'll talk about the Trinity. And you don't say nothing about Tawheed. We just tell you the Trinity is dumb. And that's all they want to talk about. So that's what I mean. It's like a dream debate for Hijab. He just gets to sit there and criticize the Trinity the whole time.
So Dr. Craig, toward the end of the debate, I think it was near the closing, he brings up Tawheed. And Muhammad's response was, well, that's basically off topic, and it's also a tu quoque, so it's not really even like something that I need to address.
Well, he brought it up in the beginning. He brought it up in the beginning. And he said, like, he made a good point. Tawheed is like the alternative here to the Trinity. If you want to say the Trinity isn't coherent, you're going to try to say like some sort of one of the versions of Tawhid has got to be. And Craig rightly pointed out, like, that has all these problems. So like you have to acknowledge that, because a lot of the problems you're going to bring up with the Trinity, we can make similar arguments with Tawhid.
Yeah, well, the point I wanted to make is that he wanted to, Muhammad's response was to say that it was off topic, but then he wanted to discuss for the first 20 minutes something that I think was explicitly off topic, which is whether or not Craig's views were heretical. It has nothing to do with the topic of whether or not the Trinity is logically.
He also did this thing where William Lane Craig brought up different disagreements within Islamic history, where in early Islamic history, Muslims couldn't agree on whether the Quran is created or uncreated.
Oh, cool! He brought that up. Craig brought that up.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Awesome!
The nature
Awesome!
and origin,
Awesome!
The nature of Allah, and so on. And he made it a very good point. He brought it up in order to point out to Mohammed Hijab that saying, look, you have these disagreements, you had early disagreements among Christians, and you now disagree with certain other Christians. William Lane Craig was saying this shouldn't be a big deal, considering that in Islamic history you very much have the same thing, where you had early disagreements. What did Mohammed Hijab do when he responded to that? He said, well, I can believe in anything. I can believe that the moon is made of cheese. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the Trinity right now.
Yeah.
It totally matters. It totally matters, because what William Lane Craig is doing there is to point out that this objection which Mohammed Hijab insists on is not such big of a deal. For example, you have the very same thing in Islam, in Islamic history, and he then dismisses this in a fallacious way.
Yeah, hey, do you guys know what this comment means? Hijab did terrible too much shirt.
Oh yeah,
this is
they
true.
want him to take. Yeah, Hijab's a part-time stripper. He likes to take off his shirt to make a point and and stuff. Okay. So people call him the part-time stripper. But on this issue of Tawhid, I don't think most Christians or Muslims have realized how significant this is, because if you defend the Trinity, and then they'll raise but there are other Christians have had different formulations of the Trinity and this and that, so it's confusing. Tawhid makes perfect sense and is easy to understand. They don't realize, okay, from a Christian perspective, you had the Old Testament giving glimpses to that there's a plurality within the nature of God. So much so even Jewish rabbis over time were picking up on this, apart from Christians making these kinds of claims. Then you get Christians, and Christians are sitting there, early Christians, going, "Hey, wait a minute, we've got the Father, and He's God, and the Son, He's God, and the Holy Spirit sounds like God. Wait, what's going on here? There's one God." And then the question is, over in the coming centuries, how do you actually come up with a formulation that fits everything and accounts for everything and doesn't have the problems with it? And they kind of wrestle with that. So it's understood from a Christian perspective. Here's the data you're given, and now you have to kind of, if you say, hey, all the data is in the Bible, how do you actually condense it into like a statement of faith or something like that? So that's what Christians are wrestling with. But Christians understand, hey, this is like nature of God type stuff that God is revealing to us. This is going to be a difficult process of formulating it into a nice, neat little statement. In Islam, the claim in Islam is, this is so simple and easy to understand. A little kid can get this. Okay, why are you guys fighting and killing each other and still can't agree? Right? Why? In other words, if our view is confusing, we understand it would be confusing. You're talking about the nature of God, just like quantum mechanics is going to be confusing. Relativity is going to be confusing. Anything you don't have instant immediate access to is going to be a confusing topic. It's going to take a while to get your mind around. And so if you're saying, that's confusing, therefore it's probably false, that's why you need this simple, easy to understand doctrine. Well, why in the name of common sense were you guys disagreeing on almost every little detail of Tawhid and fighting over it and fighting wars over this stuff, and you still can't agree, and you guys still mock and laugh at each other, and you can't agree on basics like whether Allah has body parts or not? I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, wild stuff that they only can get away with it because there are still massive numbers of people who are watching who don't understand the problems.
Very briefly to emphasize this point very briefly. So one of the main groups that in Islamic history had an issue with opposing the current and more dominant traditional Islamic viewpoint and philosophy were the Mu'tazila, also known as the Mu'tazilites. They were at some point quite dominant. They were, in fact, having asserting influence over the caliphate. They were allegedly in charge of the caliphate, so they were the majority, the noble, the great opinion that the caliph followed for a while. And the Muslims at that time considered it a rule by disbelievers or by heretics, and tried to violently change that by persecuting these Mu'tazila guys, and removing them and putting what they nowadays call Orthodox Islam in its place instead. And those Mu'tazilites, they had several disagreements, including whether humans actually have free will or not, which is supposedly a major fundamental doctrine that decides whether you are a Muslim or not, according to the Orthodox Muslims. They had disagreements on the nature of Allah, and they had disagreements on whether the Quran is created or uncreated. This was still going on in the 10th century. So many centuries after the founding of Islam, this was this big of a deal, and they killed each other over this stuff. It's not just some random insignificant issue. To make it look like Christianity has these disagreements, but Islam, we don't have such a thing, and everything is quite straightforward. That's just pure deception.
And I'd have to say they're setting themselves up for a big fall here, because there was a time in like the 90s and the early 2000s where the overwhelming vast majority of people had absolutely no clue what Islam teaches on anything. And the Muslim preacher could come into an area and be completely inconsistent in everything he was saying, and no one knew any better. So you could get away with just, Trinity, so confusing, Tawheed, super easy to understand, so that's true. And people would fall for this. And now we're getting to a time where people are like, whoa, you guys have no idea. You're lying about your history. You're lying about your theology. You're lying about what Muslims believe today. There are Muslims who will crack up laughing at other Muslims because of the theology they're espousing. There are Muslims who think it's hilarious that the Salafis defend a God who has actual body parts, and they try to figure out they figure out the number of body parts and so on. So point is, there are massive disagreements in Islam. And so when it's the same thing when they spend decades, your book has textual variants, our book no textual variants. You see, our book true, your book false. They set themselves up for a fall when people actually catch on to the fact that there are tons of textual variants and there are different Qurans and so on. They set themselves up for a fall. They're doing the exact same thing on this issue, and now we're just entering the phase where it's going to start catching up with them on this issue. It's been catching up to them on other issues. Now it's going to be catching up on this issue when people find out how truly insanely confusing Islamic theology is.
Mm-hmm. So let me just get through a couple more super chats here. I'm going to back up a little bit. Why is Hijab so highly arrogant in your guys' view? And I promise we will turn to some clips in just a second after we get through a couple more super chats.
Psychologically, he's got a huge fan base that just is a bunch of yes men. They'll say anytime Hijab says anything, they'll just agree with him. And over time, that's going to build up arrogance. I mean, you got to go back before that. IP. You've got a guy who has narcissistic personality disorder. Yeah.
And that's a guy who gets surrounded by a bunch of yes men. And so, AP, how many years have we been saying this? That you get all these guys feeding his ego. They're feeding the ego of a narcissist. The bigger his ego gets, the less they're going to be able to rein him in when necessary. And you're going to end up with a guy who's completely out of control. And people are catching on to that. The other Dawah guys are catching on to that, not having no clue what to do about this guy. What do we do about this guy? He's out of control. And there's nothing, because you come after him, you're just jealous. You're just jealous because my powerful Dawah.
It's also people like Mohammed Hijab with his personality, who will brag and be loud and overconfident, narcissistic, and all that. This is an attitude. This is behavior that is very much rewarded in Muslim culture. It is popular. I know in Christian culture you have the opposite aspect, where you consider humility more of a virtue. In Islam, that is not the case, especially if you are dealing with the enemies of Islam or opponents of Islam. It is very, very much appreciated among Muslims to chest them, to brag, to be loud, and they will not pay any attention to the actual topic. I mean, during this entire debate today, Mohammed Hijab made so many significant blunders. But if you go on into the comment section, they will talk about how certain catchphrases, certain lines, how loud and how proud he was. Some people will criticize his mannerism under Western influence, but it's generally appreciated. And yeah, David said it too. And I had a conversation with Mohammed Hijab many years ago where I told him, I think you have a narcissistic personality disorder, and he said to me explicitly, yes, I know I do. So it's not just something that we're speculating on. He directly said it to me.
One thing that we're going to do in this debate review is I'm going to give you guys a tip on how to analyze debates like this in a way that I think is going to be really helpful for you guys. So we'll get to that, I suppose, in just a little bit. Let's go ahead now, and we'll get to some more super chats in a little bit, but let's turn now to some clips. Okay, so this first clip is actually from one of the earliest clips that I've got pulled up for us to look at today. And this one is when they're talking about Cerberus. According to Dr. Craig, that's the correct way to pronounce it, not Cerberus. Cerberus.
The reason why he would be correct for the Greek.
Yes. Anyway, so the reason why I'm pulling this one up is because I think this was actually a place where Hijab, what's the right term? It's not that he corners him. He actually does sort of show that Dr. Craig didn't speak necessarily correctly, or that he is like now being inconsistent with something he said in the past. Okay. So we're going to watch this. We're going to, okay. Well, share your thoughts after we play this. So this one, Craig is talking about Cerberus, how it's misunderstood and that it's not intended to be an analogy.
The example I used of Cerberus, Mr. Hijab, I think has been greatly misunderstood. That is not intended to be an analogy to the Trinity. That was meant to be a springboard for thinking about what it means to be three persons in one being. And so
Okay, so that's that. Let me skip forward a little bit to 36:55, and then you'll be able to share your thoughts, AP, in just a second. 10 seconds.
Yeah. You say that this is not an analogy, but that's exactly what you write in your article. You say perhaps we can get a start at this question by means of an analogy.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
Okay, well, wait, because so this is the only time in the entire debate where someone interrupts, and it was actually Dr. Craig. I think that's also important to point out here. Dr. Craig was the only one to interrupt. Like Hijab, he behaved himself, other than all of the rhetoric and chest thumping and stuff.
It seemed like all he was interrupting on was just, I just told you what I did, and then you quoted me, and that's exactly what I did. So
here is the thing.
Is there something more to it?
There's more to it. There's more to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me continue the clip.
Springboard to thinking about
Dr. Craig, let's let Mohammed finish his thought here.
I understand, but you denied in your response there that this was an analogy, and you've written in your written work that this is perhaps we can get a start at this question by means of an analogy, and then you mentioned Cerberus as the analogy. So the point is this.
Okay, so he basically had a quote ready for him from an article that he wrote. He doesn't actually mention the article, but apparently he has used that term. So, yeah.
Here is the problem. Here is the problem. So Mohammed Hijab quotes him. Earlier, before this exchange here happens, Mohammed Hijab actually pulls out a figure of the Cerberus and says, "You actually compared God to this dog with the three heads, and did this, and said that that God is like this dog with the three heads and all that." And you could see William Lane Craig already kind of smiling and being feeling awkward about that because he's being obviously misrepresented. And then William Lane Craig pointed out, he said, I think you don't understand that the Cerberus analogy was not meant to be an analogy to the Trinity. It was meant to be a springboard to understanding, to making an analogy and further understanding or coming closer to the Trinity and so on. So then Mohammed Hijab jumps in and says, well, you just said it's not an analogy, but in your article you obviously say it is an analogy. But here is the issue. I actually pulled up earlier responses and writings and articles by William Lane Craig about this issue. And I'm not sure which article he's referring to, but funnily enough, February 18th, 2024, on the website Reasonable Faith, William Lane Craig says exactly the following. It says, I do not take Cerberus to be an analogy of the Trinity. On the contrary. And then he goes on further explaining that the point of this of the topic of Cerberus, as he says it, would be to make a step toward understanding the Trinity. It is not a direct analogy to the Trinity. There is a difference here. So
any thoughts on that, David? Or Michael, if you've got some, you feel free to share.
It's a situation that comes up over and over again where you're getting challenged on how God can be three in one way and more than three in one way and one in a different way. And so you would explain that, well, he's one in terms of essence and nature or being or something like that, and he's more than one on the level of person or something like that. And that's too confusing. And so you usually give examples of things that are one in one way, more than one in another way. But then as soon as you do that, they'll, you're saying God. I'm not. This is an example of how something could be one in one way, more than one in another way. And so, you do that, and it's weird that Muslims will be looking, no, how is that like God? How is that like God? Show us something like God. The Quran, it's Surah 42:11, there's nothing like God. Surah 42, verse 11, there is nothing like God, right? And they're always going, show us something like God. Show us something like your Trinity. Show us something. According to the Quran, there's nothing like God. Why would you demand that something be like it like God in a sense of like, here's a clear analogy of something that is just like God? And their own book says nothing's like God. Don't even try it. So anyways, I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation. But I would say if suppose Craig at some point had said this is an analogy, and his current position is it's not an analogy, so what? So he's either never meant it that way, and it just came across that way to people like Hijab and to others and so on. And so later he clarified it. Or if they're saying, no, you were presenting it as an analogy. Okay, if it came across that way in the past, sorry, here's what I'm saying now. Here's my position now.
People are going to see that. I think people are going to see that, and they're going to think that Hijab won that point, and that's like, if we're like tallying points on both sides, that's like a really big point for Hijab. I think people watching are going to think that, although I don't think they necessarily should, because like you just pointed out, David, like if he said that in the past, doesn't mean that that's his view now.
Here is the thing,
and that's not his overall point.
You can make a short point where you give a short answer to a short question, and the short answer then may sound like may make you look accurate, and you might win a few people over. But in reality, if you want to get to the surface of the actual topic, you will see that. Well, first off, even if William Lane Craig there made a mistake, for example, and contradicted himself, this wouldn't really necessarily harm his position in any way. But
it doesn't. It doesn't show that the Trinity is incoherent, which is the topic of the debate.
But if you actually look at the article, I just found the article actually, and I can see from the very beginning of it directly what William Lane Craig is saying, because Mohammed Hijab, when he brought the topic up, started ridiculing it by saying, how can you say that this is the same thing? How can you compare God to the Cerberus? Because the Cerberus obviously, just because it has three heads, that doesn't mean it's three different people. I mean, Siamese twins, does it mean they are the same people, and so on? And William Lane Craig rightly pointed out, he said, okay, this was not meant to be a direct analogy. And the article here makes it very clear. He says, obviously, this is different from the nature of God. And there is very much nothing among created things that I can find to make an analogy to the Trinity. This is explicitly what he says in the article. I can link it later. And he then compares the mythological narrative of the Cerberus or Cerberus to understanding a certain aspect of the Trinity. He's not saying that Cerberus and God are basically the same thing in a way.
And what's crazy there is, AP, you know about this. When they're talking about Allah's body parts, and yes, we affirm that he has eyes, but we can't understand what they're like. And we affirm that he has right hands. I mean, he has two hands, but they're both right hands. They're both right hands, and we can't understand it. We can't understand how this is, and so on. And you have other Muslims who look at all this, and it's Mufti Abu Layth. He said, what you're describing is a gremlin. what you're describing is you're describing a gremlin. So think about this. I mean, this is mainstream Salafi Islam. It's here's Allah's body parts and so on, and here's sort of the image you get when you put them all together. But they'll keep reminding you, just don't try to picture this in your head, because it's not going to be anything like that's not what Allah's going to be. You can't actually picture these things. And Mufti Abul Layth's cracking up. He's going, too late. Once you said two right arms, I can't. We're humans. We can't help but try and picture, something with two arms there. And when you say one leg with 2 feet, we can't help but picture something like that, and so on. So he says you're describing a gremlin. So anyway, it's just amazing that they will say that Salafi Muslims will say, oh yes, Allah has eyes, but they're not like our eyes, and you can't understand what they're like. And Allah has this, and you can't get your mind around it. You'll never be able to understand it because you're a mere human being. You get to the Trinity, and it's point to something like that, and it has to be exactly like that. And it's weird, wild stuff, man. Totally hypocritical.
While we're on the topic, go ahead.
I sent you the article, by the way. I sent you per message here the article, just so you know, just so you have it.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, so Joseph Lockwood says, love the work, guys. Could you give me all your views on the Trinity? Let's start with AP.
Skip me.
You are a closeted Christian, right? You're not really atheist or agnostic, right?
But I'm trying to hide it. So
Cameron, do you remember what we said about snitches, Cameron?
That was too long ago.
On everybody.
I don't remember.
What you got to say? You got to say something about You got to say something about IP at some point, because you've snitched on the rest of us.
Okay. So maybe we should actually answer the question. David, what is your view? And don't explain it. Just tell us what the view is, so we can move on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. I don't adhere to any specific model. I would Father, Son, Holy Spirit, 3 persons, 1 God. That's about all I would stick to. So I understand there are different models, and the different models work better or worse in different ways and stuff like that. I'm always kind of let you theology guys figure that stuff out, and I'll stick with my basic concept.
It's not a topic that I've done much study on, although IP has done a video on this, right? Or many videos.
I actually want to say something about this, but once you guys are done.
Okay.
Well, my view is monarchical Trinitarianism. So the Father is the one true God, identifiable with God in the numerical sense, and the Son and Spirit are God in a predicative sense. So they share all the same intrinsic properties with the Father, but their source is in the Father. So the Son is eternally begotten of the Father, and the Spirit is eternally generated of the Father. But they all share all the same intrinsic ontological properties. So they're all God, so eternal, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, these kinds of things. So I'm a monarchical Trinitarian.
Okay. AP, what you got?
Okay. Now, I'm going to let you all in on a secret here. Everyone, all the Christians on the panel and all the Christians who are watching, I'm going to let you in on a secret here. And this is only half joking. I'm actually quite serious about this. When you sit here and talk about the Trinity and talk about the model of Trinity and the different definitions throughout history and so on, and when Mohammed Hijab challenges William Lane Craig on the Trinity and on the full divinity of the Holy Spirit and so on all of these things, this is actually a very, very big distraction. Because, I'm serious, because the vast majority of Muslims, over 90% of the Muslims, when talking about this topic, don't actually know anything about the Trinity and the doctrine of the Trinity and how it developed and so on. What they have an issue with and what they think the problem is that is the belief in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Forget about formalizing the Trinity and laying it out as a clear doctrine. That's a different issue. You can get into that discussion forever. You will be just playing into their hands, because what they are doing is they are implying or even claiming, when you actually ask them and push them to this, that early Christians did not believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So they're not just talking about the formalizing and declaring the doctrine of the Trinity. They're acting as if early Christians never held this belief that Jesus is the Son of God and that the Holy Spirit is God, that God the Father is God, and so on. Which is obviously false, right? Everybody knows. We all know. Everybody knows this is as old as Christianity. The earliest Christians, the immediate followers of Jesus, who saw him, who lived with him, those followers who saw his followers, they all believed in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And this is all declared. It is found in the earliest sources. You need to make this clear, because Muslims try to tackle this issue and confuse Christians, because they actually think the unthinkable, that the early Christians never even believed in Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
All right, let's continue. Let's continue to another super chat.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Let's continue. I just revealed to you the greatest secret in the universe. So
it was a good point. You made a good point. It is a good point. I mean, that's probably true. Most people in general don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Trinity. So I would suspect the same is true for most Muslims. Alhamdulillah. I admire William Lane Craig's calm patience with hijab, while hijab's chest thumping at the end was expected and childish. We are going to actually review his closing statement at some point during the stream. So it is the whole thing. The whole thing is good. The whole thing is good.
It is interesting. Me and AP have talked about it a bunch during live streams and so on, that the goal of Dawah like 20 years ago was to find a speaker who's going to be persuasive to non-Muslims. So they would get like a Jamal Badawi, a Shabir Ali, people like that, that are kind of handpicked for who's going to be most appealing to non-Muslim audiences. Once you started getting higher apostasy rates in Islam and so on, the emphasis in Dawah shifted to what's going to be impressive to Muslims, what's going to give Muslims confidence. And it's night and day. They're two completely different things. What is appealing to non-Muslims is generally completely different, and sometimes the exact opposite behavior as what is appealing to Muslims. So as Dawah, the emphasis in Dawah shifted from being persuasive to non-Muslims to being persuasive to Muslims, that's when all the chest thumping, me strong, then you, them weak, we strong. That's when it became all of that. And so Muslims are looking at that going, wow, this is so great. He's so strong. Look at him thump that chest. And non-Muslims are going, what is this mess? This is like, these are the best guys that Islam can come up with to represent their position. Looks insane.
Okay, by the way,
in other words, these are good times.
So let me just alert the audience really quickly. I want to alert the audience that we are going to get to in just a little bit. We're going to get to this. I think the most poignant part in the debate that shows that hijab. I mean, this is basically like a paradigmatic example of the way that the debate went in terms of substance. Okay, I think that's the example that we're about to look at. It has to do with causal overdetermination. That's what we're looking at. The candle, the whole candle matches, lighting and all that. And we're going to use some new tools and stuff to evaluate it as well. But so we're going to get to that in just a little bit, but we'll go through a few more super chats because we've got a ton that you guys have been seeing, which I appreciate you guys doing that.
If David didn't talk so long and so much, we could easily move on.
I'm not saying a word. You're talking.
Congrats to AP and WLC for recently having some of the most one-sided debates in Dawah history. God bless.
Well, shout out to God Logic, Avery. He with me together. That was a good debate.
It was a good debate. I watched that one.
Nice.
Okay, Serial Bowl says, David, did you receive an email from somebody? It's extremely important. Someone's life is in danger.
I get hundreds of emails a day, so I don't know what.
Yes.
Me too.
MMDOCI. I'll check both accounts right now, both my main accounts.
All right, from Cam, I was looking through the debate, surprised he didn't bring up the leather strap.
I must say I was a little bit surprised that Mohammed Hijab didn't mention any of the regular things that he usually mentions. For example, William Lane Craig's, I don't know, wife, mother, any other issues like sexual stuff. He didn't bring up any of these regular things which are part of his normal, debate narrative, which is very confusing to me. I don't know. Something is changing about him.
All right. Loaves of Bread says William Lane Craig's Bible doesn't have the book Council of Nicaea. Someone actually did mention this. Someone did mention this earlier, that his rejection, nevertheless, of the Council of Nicaea is something to be concerned about.
It is problematic, I would say. Well, I would also say one of the Craig's...
That's not what he's talking about.
Guys, yeah, we know he's talking about Sneeko. Yeah, he's talking about Sneeko. But I mean, like, yeah,
I actually did not know what's going on.
Do you know Okay, so yeah, Cameron. Quick version. Sneeko, after he converted, was being asked why he converted, and he's talking about how the Bible's been corrupted, and then he starts going on. It's like the book of the Council of Nicaea. It was removed. It was removed from the New Testament. I was a Catholic. I know my stuff. Anyway, so there was a book called the Book of the Council of Nicaea, and it was taken
just like
out
there
of the
was
Bible.
a book of the Injil, right?
Yeah, and then he was someone brought up a verse, and Sneeko brought up a verse, and the guys, can you give me the reference? And he goes, Matt 39. He didn't know Matthew. You know what Matthew was? He goes Matt because it was Matt with the period. It was abbreviated. Matt 39. He didn't know. Okay, you have to go chapter and then verse. Anyway, that's what people are making fun of.
Okay.
I would say Craig. I would say that someone did say a super chat earlier, and they brought up Craig. I do think Craig's rejection of the Nicene Creed is problematic, and I don't understand where.
But it had nothing to do with the debate. That's the problem.
But, I mean, he would say I will say he thinks that like the eternal generation is not in the Bible, but I mean like John 5:26, for as the Father has life in himself, he has granted the Son also to have life in himself. And you could say, well, maybe that means, I think it's hard to get around that, but it's really hard to get around John 15:26 when it says, but when the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who proceeds from the Father. So, I mean, right then and there, you get the eternal generation right there of Son and Spirit in the Gospel of John. So, yeah, I don't know why he rejects those and doesn't think they're in Scripture.
Yeah, but the thing is, again, as Cameron just said, it has no relevance to the topic. So it's one thing to discuss that, but it's the topic was supposed to be the logic of the Trinity, right?
Yeah, and it's something you can discuss. It's definitely a conversation to have, but it's well, especially if he's going to complain about something Craig bringing up being off topic. Like, why would you want to then spend 20 minutes talking about something that's off topic, and then and then get upset? So Avery is in the house. I don't know if he's still here, still watching. God Logic says this panel is tough. See, I don't know what he means by that. I don't know what he means.
Only half as tough as it would be if Avery were also here. The guy's a beast.
True.
Avery's running.
True. We could invite him. Avery, if you're still watching, you want to join, just send me a text.
He would steal the whole show, man.
Yeah, he would.
Let's not do that.
He's a show stealer.
Well, we gotta bring him now. Let's talk God. Mohammed Hijab's brain is smoother than all the baby oil at Diddy's house.
Wow. You have some creepy dudes. You have some creepy viewers. Cameron. You go to me or AP's channel. Everything is super clean and.
Yeshua the King ads during live, brother. What is that? No. We don't have control over that anymore. YouTube took that away. So.
Yeah,
they just put ads up whatever they want. Okay, so let's now turn to what we've all been waiting for: causal overdetermination, the thing that is super exciting. All right, so this one I'll give you guys a quick overview of the dialectic, so you can know how this came about. Actually, let me get the. You know what, AP? Why don't you do that? If you remember how this topic came about. Otherwise, I can give a quick summary while I'm trying to get this.
I actually didn't care about this topic very much. Not that much, honestly.
Okay, well, what about you, IP?
You want me to give an overview of this?
Well, I wanted to just. I'll just do it now that I've got the timestamp here. I just wanted to like bring people up to speed on how we got to this point, like in the conversation. So I'll just give it really quickly. So So Hijab initially challenged, he said, how can three persons be fully responsible for creation? That was like his first challenge.
Okay, yeah.
Then Craig responded, well, they act in perfect harmony and each is fully responsible due to divine perfection. Okay, and then Hijab didn't really respond to that, but he said this would imply partialism. That was his response, where each person of the Trinity is only responsible for part of creation. And then Craig introduced at this point causal overdetermination, where he says multiple agents can be fully responsible for the same effect, as with two matches lighting the same candle. Okay, that's his example that he gave. And then Hijab responded, why don't we just watch it? Why don't we just watch this this back and forth here? Okay, so yeah, let's David, we'll kind of get your reaction live because you haven't watched it. But yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't think you understand causal overdetermination, Mr. Hijab. When two matches light a flame simultaneously or light a candle, they don't each contribute 50% to the lighting of the candle. They are each 100% sufficient for the effect, but they act concurrently with each other. And so in the act of creation, I see absolutely no problem with saying that there is a concurrence here of the action of the three persons of the Trinity to produce this creative effect.
So you're saying the Trinity is a candle? Is that what you're saying?
David, I know you predict some horrible response from Mohammed Hijab, but please hear the response.
Oh, really?
It will be even worse. It is so stupid.
Yes,
I can't believe it.
You need to listen to this. But first, I want to make sure that everyone understands what causal overdetermination means in this case. Like, what is the example?
More than one sufficient cause. More than one. You have more than one sufficient cause. Guys, a sufficient cause is a cause that is sufficient. Exactly what it sounds like. Sufficient to account for whatever it's doing. Over determination would be you have multiple sufficient causes. In other words, each one would be entirely sufficient to do that. So like a classic example is the firing squad. Like now they'll only have like one guy that actually has a bullet, and the other guys only have they're not actually killing someone. But you can imagine like multiple people, if they all had bullets and they all fire and so on. Any one of those guys would have killed it. Any one of those bullets going into the person's heart would have been sufficient.
And also, it's not like Craig just came up with something like on the fly. This is something that's been discussed in philosophy for years. There's entire papers written just on causal overdetermination, just on that, varieties of it, different types. So like, this is not something that you would, if you were studying philosophy, this would come up for sure.
IP, you should make a video just about this part on how Mohammed Hijab does not understand this quite simple, relatively simple concept, and also fails to grasp the logic here. I think it would be fantastic.
So this is his objection, right? So he says, how can three persons be fully responsible? Then Dr. Craig says, well, they're in perfect harmony because they're all perfect. And then then Hijab's response is, well, that would imply partialism, where each person is only partially responsible for creation. And that's where Dr. Craig gave this objection, causal overdetermination. And then he gave the example of the match. Like two matches lighting a candle. Okay. And then let's watch Hijab's response to that.
Okay. So to respond to this very clearly, your candle example with overdetermination, causal overdetermination, it's disanalogous to what we are talking about. Why?
We'll just pause for
look at Craig's face.
We'll pause for dramatic effect. Okay. He's about to do it. He's about to explain why.
If you have two candles that come together to light a flame, you will have a bigger flame, you see. Oh,
it's over. Oh, you see? You see the power of the candle. It makes a bigger flame. You're finished. You're finished. You look at you. You're done.
Boy. Oh. So going to the firing squad example. So suppose you have three guys with rifles in the firing squad. They all fire a bullet, hit the guy dead center in his heart. You'd say each one of those is sufficient to kill the guy. You don't say that this guy killed him a third. This guy did a third of the killing, and that guy did a third of the killing, and that guy did a third of the killing. That's the point of saying it's overdetermined. They all account for the guy's death, completely sufficient. All account for the guy's death. But so Hijab would have heard that and said, "Oh, so you're saying this guy is extra dead now. He's really big dead because all of the deadness came together.
The hole in his chest is bigger.
Much bigger dead, you see.
What Hijab doesn't understand is that the candle analogy explains the lighting of the candle. So he just switches it to, but it makes a bigger fire. Like, but no, it's sufficient to explain why the candle is lit. It doesn't matter how big the fire is. There, the candle is lit, and both matches sufficiently explain that. Again, causal overdetermination is frequently talked about in philosophy. There's papers written about this.
And the thing is, the analogy is such a simple to understand analogy. I mean, you don't have to be.
And there's a lot of other examples you could give as well.
Yeah, you don't have to be an expert on this. You can understand here.
There's even what's going on. There's even a Wikipedia page. I just looked it up. There's a Wikipedia page for anyone who's interested. Like, this is not some foreign concept.
And so, wait, guys. So Hijab was basically asking, how can three persons account for what, like creation or something like that?
Creation, yeah.
And then so he's saying it makes no sense because they're each doing a part of it. And then Craig responds, well, you could light something. You could light one candle with two flames, and that would, so the two flames can together, and that's not partialism. You're not saying one did half the lighting and the other did half the lighting. Either one would have lit it, and they're doing it together. And so that seems like a very clear and easy to understand response to Hijab's objection, and all he does is, but it would give a bigger flame if two fire came together. Two fire come together, make one big fire, make bigger fire, which completely ignores the point of, okay, well, yep. And again, this is something that Hijab's fans will be watching going, him right, two flame make big flame, ha ha, Craig no answer that, they don't know answer big flame, ha ha, I got strong.
I wouldn't be surprised if they started making videos with candles to prove that Mohammed Hijab was right.
Look, he got two flame. Oh, it's bigger now. It's right. Craig don't understand. You gotta love Dawah, man.
Oh man, it's incredible.
Y'all keep going. I'm trying to get Avery in the stream actually, so y'all keep going.
Avery.
Yeah,
absolutely incredible.
Guys, so I'll just tell everyone some areas where causal overdetermination would be relevant in philosophy. Lots of times in philosophy of mind, and you can kind of combine it with Occam's razor in terms of mind.
Sorry, guys, you're muted. Sorry, you got to unmute yourself. Actually, wait a second. I think it might be on my end. Yeah, it's saying it will unmute. So something's going on. Sorry, guys.
Wait, now I can talk.
There it is.
Check,
okay, sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, everyone's here. All right.
Why does David get to be on top?
Because that's life.
It's just how it worked out. Okay,
that's life.
Just relax. He'll join at some point. He'll be here. He'll be.
So I mean, like a good
corner.
Example of like mental causation or causal overdetermination is in philosophy of mind. Like, say I have a desire to get healthy. I also have a desire to eat a tasty salad. You could have both desires could causally explain why I decided to eat a salad. It's frequently used in philosophy of mind when you're talking about different dispositions and desires. And this is relative because the Trinity is of course a mind. You have one God who is three persons of one mind. So you can have in philosophy of mind, that's just going to be basic. It's going to be a basic.
You see how low the Christians have fallen. Now he's comparing God to salad.
Yeah, because it's like, you got your lettuce and you got your cucumber and you got your dressing, but it's just one salad. You see what I'm saying? It's perfectly clear.
All right. While we're waiting on Avery, let's get through some more super chats. And then what we're going to do, we do have some more clips lined up. We're going to go through the closing statement from Hijab, which has got some sound bites that we'll definitely want to look at. So super chat from Bilbo Baggins. As an annihilationist, open theist, preterist, etc., I hope we can chill with the heresy label. It allows nincompoops like Hijab to just throw around the heresy word and immediately poison the well.
No. Well, Bilbo, I know these beliefs might be precious to you, but some of them you probably need to let go.
Heretic.
Yeah, I would say depends on what you mean by open theist. If you mean God is not omniscient, like process theologians do, that would be problematic. If you define time differently, like so that the future doesn't exist, therefore God is omniscient, that I think that's within orthodoxy. It really depends on what you mean by that, though. I also have problems with full preterism. So I mean, like I understand where you're coming from when it comes to heresy. It's not good to throw around, but as Christians, we need to have core doctrines that define what we believe and who we are and what we mean by you're in the body of Christ, you're in orthodoxy. And so like I had a conversation like a week ago with a process theologian, and he just outright denied the resurrection of Jesus and the general resurrection. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're outside of orthodoxy. I cannot call you a Christian, even though you call yourself a Christian, because you're denying core doctrine. So I would say on the surface, this doesn't look like heresy to me. If you're a full preterist, if you're an open theist, in some sense, I may have some issues. So, I mean, I would agree with you. Let's not throw the word around loosely, but it still cannot just be discarded entirely.
I have to say what that heretic Bilbo just pointed out, it's actually pretty darn important. Me and AP over on live streams keep pointing out, like, because everyone feels like they're being attacked nowadays, the tendency is to join a group for your protection and so on. But also another outcome of feeling like you're attacked all the time is you're just more amped up with aggression. So you're going to be attacking in all directions. And that's why you have all these people joining groups and then having to mindlessly agree with everything the group says, and then trying to form alliances with other groups. But then the alliances immediately back down because they'll start flipping out over everything. The exact same thing is happening to all Christians. Are going through the exact same thing right now, in the sense that everyone feels like they're being attacked. And so the tendency is to become deeper and more devoted to whatever group you are. But that also is going to include wanting to lash out and attack other groups. So in other words, long story short, guys, Catholics, Orthodox, Protestants are all going to watch in the coming months and so on. They're all going to start attacking each other more. And then individual groups, like you can have Protestants, you can have a ton of different denominations. They'll all start amping up. Christian apologists are all going to start going after each other more on things that they wouldn't have gone after each other on 5 years ago and stuff. So all that's going to be happening right now. So it's important to keep it in mind.
Well, we've got Avery here. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to see everybody, man. IP, D Wood, Cam, good to see you guys, man. God bless you guys. Thanks for inviting me, bro.
Hey, yeah, I've never seen God Logic in the same room with Chef Logic. I'm starting to think that
those are two different people, man. Those are two different people.
Oh.
Yeah. Was it Chef Logic or Sheik Logic? Or Shake Logic?
Shake Logic.
Oh, okay. Shake is okay.
Yeah, okay. Depends on what type of Mutmanoon we're talking to that day.
Okay. So Avery, what were your thoughts on the it wasn't a debate, it was supposed to be a discussion, but what were your thoughts on it?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually haven't watched it. Like I got I know.
Bravo, yeah. Sir.
This is the best debate review ever. Most of the people, well, not most, but half of the people here haven't watched the actual debate we're reviewing.
Okay, I just changed my mind, Cameron. I just changed my mind. Kick God Logic since he didn't watch it.
All right, I'll just kick him out of here.
No, don't kick me. Don't kick me. You know, I saw a little bit of it.
Turkish guy wants.
You saw the clips.
Turkish guy wants to kick a black guy. Imagine that.
Yeah,
Turkish German.
Pretty normal, man.
You know, I think IP. What you got to leave soon, huh? You've only got like 15 minutes,
20 minutes or so. Yeah, I got.
We didn't even start the review, and you were leaving.
Yeah, the one person who's actually watched it. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I would talk more about it if David would shut up. I mean, he's the one who hasn't watched it. He won't shut up, though.
Okay, Addison Weir has a question. Isn't there a video clip where someone asked Dr. Craig for a good analogy for the Trinity and he brings up Cerberus? Is anyone familiar with that? I don't know.
I thought he was using it for analogy many years ago too, and then someone pointed out to me he wasn't. I can understand where the confusion comes from, but I think I think Hijab, the most charitable thing he should have done is say, okay, well, you just weren't clear, which is fair. That happens. It's hard sometimes to communicate, but no, I don't think he actually is using it as an analogy. That I think he's been misinterpreted, and maybe he just didn't choose his words carefully enough. But no, as he said in the debate, he's using it as a springboard.
I would encourage everyone who wants to understand this further to look up the article. It is called "The Doctrine of the Trinity, Part 5" on Reasonable Faith, also on his own website. It's a long article, but somewhere down you can find the quote, "by means of an analogy." The paragraph starts with, "All of this leaves us wondering how three persons can somehow be the same being." And to read it, he is clearly not comparing the Trinity to the Cerberus. He is simply saying that this provides a springboard to understanding, a complex aspect of it. That is it. Yeah. So it's probably easy to misunderstand, but once you read the article, which Mohammed Hijab is not known very much for doing properly, you will. I think the confusion would be cleared.
Yeah, imagine a world where AP had the technological ability to just make a video about that and explain it for people.
That would be amazing.
Imagine.
But no, that's the danger. Like with these analogies, if Dr. William Lane Craig wasn't clear before, he should have made it. He should have made it clear that, hey guys, this isn't the Trinity. That's what I'm saying. This. He
did that in the debate. He just what happened though is that Hijab brought up an old article from Dr. Craig saying that this is an analogy, and so it just kind of it was almost like a little gotcha quote. But then the point is that wasn't what he was trying to do here, and so that's
you being the host in that moment. Did it seem like he got him with something? Like if you were,
I think he only got him. He only got him in the sense of Dr. Craig said that it's not an analogy, and then he has he had a quote from his written work where he said that it is an analogy. That it is an analogy.
Know about that, so I don't know if he really got him there. I mean, because again, Craig was pretty clear. That's not what I meant. So
right,
you should be charitable, and if the audience sees that and they go, "Well, that's not what he meant." His job really being charitable here,
Yeah.
Really
right. Plus, the dumbest aspect of it to me is that Mohammed Hijab also then said, just because the dog has 3 heads, does that mean that there are 3 different people? Let's talk about Siamese twins, for example. Why does he go from this issue to something completely different when William Lane Craig is obviously talking about a mythological character and how it is understood and how a certain aspect of it compares to a certain aspect, which would help to understanding how 3 different beings could be in one and all that. So it's just a ridiculous attempt at trying to attack William Lane Craig's past words when it has nothing to do with the actual topic. And it was so important to him to get into this and to attack Dr. Craig on it that he actually got himself the figure of the Cerberus. He had it in his hand, and he was pointing at it to just point that out. And this is what Mohammed Hijab does. Whenever he prepares to debate somebody, he looks into a few things where he can, get them. Sometimes it's like deeply personal things. Sometimes it is certain things that are considered problematic and written in the past, and then he just goes by that. But it's not really relevant to the topic. The topic is whether the Trinity makes sense or not.
So let's continue, because this one is on the topic of overdetermination, and then IP, maybe after this one you can head out and go get some dinner, whatever you got to do.
Oh, you're kicking me out. All right.
It's up to you. You can stay as long as you want. You just told me that you got 90 minutes and we started late. So Stefan says, Hijab insisted 2 women cannot produce the same child. It still takes 2, a man and a woman. So David, what you didn't see is that he made another point, is that there is no overdetermination in the case of 2 women producing a child. And so Dr. Craig also responded to that too. He was like, yeah, just because you don't have overdetermined in every case of causality, that doesn't mean that you'd never have overdetermination in other examples.
This isn't
such as the one that he gave.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's He just assumed like his one analogy represented all understanding of causality. And it's like, dude, like there are different types of causality here, and there's different ways it can manifest. Like,
exactly.
I don't know, man. It was like, that is just really bad reasoning.
Yeah. So that's where this is coming from, David. But that was basically, and that was basically the end of that dialectic as well. So like, that's where their reasoning on this issue of overdetermination, that's where it ended. Like it didn't go any further than that, which yeah. So I wanted to call that out as a like I said, like a paradigm example of the substance in the debate, what happened to it, where it went, and then it just fizzled out, and that was it. Like Hijab gave these really bad objections that had nothing to do with the point that Dr. Craig was making, and didn't refute any of his points, but it seemed maybe it seemed that way to the audience because of his demeanor, and the way that he was, and that's kind of like his whole strategy was to we're going to look at that in a little bit.
That is all of Dawah. That is 100% the goal of Da'is. You can spout complete nonsense as long as you give the impression of extreme confidence. That's all they're looking. That's all they're looking at. They're looking for how confident you appear to be. You could be saying complete idiotic, ridiculous nonsense.
Yep.
They are not paying attention to your arguments or to logic or to anything else. It's, he sounds, and keep in mind, people are, this is built into the foundations of Islam. We have the story of Mu'ayisa and Huayisa, and one of these brothers converts to Islam and instantly starts going out and slaughtering people. And then he comes back and his brother's like, what are you doing running around killing people? You killed that guy, man. He was friends of our family. What are you doing here? And he's like, if Muhammad told me to kill you, I'd kill you too. And then his brother converts to Islam too. And he says, surely something that would make you do this must be the truth. It's built in there. Whatever is giving you this confidence to go around and attack and kill and whatever else, it's your level of confidence shows how you, in other words, you're confident for a reason. You must really know what you're talking about. That's why you're so incredibly confident. And so it's built into Islam from the beginning.
Well, that's what all Avery does, right? When I watch his debates, that's all he does. He has no substance, and it's all confidence. And
look at me, I'm a chef. I'm a chef, and I'm cooking.
He has like outfits. He wears outfits. He has other people on that make all his points for him. Like what is it, Sam, that you got on? He does all the hard work.
Sam, maybe Chris Claus or somebody like that. Maybe have somebody in the back pocket, Sig or somebody. Me, I'm just a face. Just a chocolate smooth face. And alhamdulillah, Christianity. All it is.
All right, let's move on to another super chat now that we've got that one.
I want to mention one thing briefly, which is Mohammed Hijab, related to this topic, kept pushing one certain issue, which I think kind of got lost, although Dr. William Lane Craig responded to it, but Mohammed Hijab just wouldn't understand it, which was, how can there be three persons and they all, what if they have a disagreement? What if they have a different opinion on something? What if they decide to do something different? Then who is right and what happens and all that? This is, he actually kept it quite contained during this debate. If you want to have a good laugh as a Christian apologist and somebody who understands Christianity, look at Mohammed Hijab's video, which is, I think, called Proof That the Trinity is Wrong or something like that, or This Proves the Trinity. Something like that is the title. And he actually made a video in which he says, you can destroy the Trinity in 1 minute. I have a very simple question. Okay, so Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but what if the Father and the Son want something different? What if they have a disagreement? Then what happens? Do they fight? Do they come together and fight? Do they have a disagreement? Do they argue? Who is right? Who decides what happens and what doesn't happen? This is basically his video. I'm serious. This is his video, and this is his 100% proof that the Trinity is a false doctrine and that it is illogical and doesn't make sense. It is really that stupid. I know to Muslim viewers, this might sound smart, and I really do not know how to express this in the most respectful way. But
is that what argument is better? Is that argument better than that Mary ate food? Which argument is a better argument against the Trinity?
I think it's pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie to you. That almost got me to say my shahada when I saw that. So.
Oh yeah, I never thought about it about Mary ate food. That's a problem for the Trinity.
Woo!
By the way, it's that is interesting stuff in terms of applying that as a principle. Well, what if Father and Son wanted two different things? Then what? Well, you see, that shows that it's incoherent. In Islam, Allah has.
Let me pull his verse
names. Hang on. Allah has 99 names corresponding to 99 different attributes, but Allah has different attributes. So he's one in the level of being or essence, but more than one on the level of attribute. But according to Muhammad, the attributes of Allah can actually be in conflict. So there's a famous hadith where Muhammad says that Allah's mercy triumphs over his wrath. But think about this. Wrath, his attribute of wrath is calling for and demanding one thing, and mercy is calling for and demanding something different. They're calling for opposite things, and one of them actually wins. One of them actually wins that battle. So according to Hijab, this would mean that there's actually two gods. It would be two gods because you have two different wills of these attributes. They're calling for different things, and that would mean there are two different gods and not one in essence.
So Avery's gone because I don't have the scene set up for that many people. But
you cut the black guy, man.
Surah 573. Those who say Allah is one in a Trinity have certainly fallen into disbelief. There is only one God. So this is in context. Verse 75 is clearly about the Trinity, right? Okay, and then let's look at 75. The Messiah, son of Mary, was no more than a messenger. Many messengers had come and gone before him. His mother was a woman of truth. They both ate food. That's the argument. And then see how we make the signs clear to them?
Oh, you see how what a brilliant point, you see.
So man, the Quran, like,
yeah, and then if you go to verse 1,
maybe I'm just being uncharitable.
If you go to verse 116, it ties it all together. It's clearly the author of the Quran clearly thinks that the Trinity is Allah, Jesus, and Mary, who all work together very closely.
Yeah, these are two things that the Quran seems to get completely wrong. One of these is it on two different occasions, it clearly indicates that Christians believe in Allah, and besides him also in Jesus as a separate God, and in Mary as another third God or goddess. This is what the Quran depicts. Similarly, in chapter 9, verse 30, it in a very outlandish, weird way that is still inexplicable, it accuses Jews of believing that Uzair, translated as Ezra, is the son of Allah, just like Christians believe Jesus is the son of Allah and also a divinity. So the Quran gets Christian beliefs completely wrong and Jewish beliefs completely wrong, which shows that it is a book full of ignorance on clear display.
Yeah, it really is interesting stuff.
Cameron, can you pull up a different verse, which would be chapter 23, verse 91? Could you do that for me?
Yeah,
if I say please.
91, not 94.
So it says, Allah has never had any offspring, nor is there any God besides him. Otherwise, each God would have taken away what he created, and they would have tried to dominate one another. Glorified is Allah above what they claim.
That's Hijab's. That's what's underlying Hijab's thinking. Oh, but if it's father and son, what happened if they both wanted to steal everything for themselves?
Exactly. And the thing is, during the debate, Mohammed Hijab also said something. He
brought this up.
The Quran. He said, and this is not something that I say and that I just make up. It's actually the Quran that is pointing out the illogical aspect of believing in the Trinity and so on. So he basically said it's not me who is dumb, it's the Quran. And this is where he's getting his logic from, where it implies that if indeed there are different persons or different deities, as the Quran understands it, as the Quran makes it out to be, so according to the Quran, they must be believing in 3 different gods. Then those 3 different gods would necessarily be arrogant and selfish and would have conflicting wills and would end up fighting and eating up each other. So
it almost seems like projection. Like
yeah.
Well, it is, and it's also just incorrect because it says each god, and it's like, okay, that's not what Christians believe. So, I mean, like, it's getting values wrong because in Christianity, like, God is love. Like 1 John 4 says that if God is love, that's going to be the defining quality, not power, not like order. It's going to, the most defining quality of God is love. And if there's love in the Trinity, they're going to act in one accord and do the most loving thing. So it just doesn't work. This is a bad argument from the Quran.
It is a horrible, horrible, horrible argument. The thing is also, William Lane Craig also brought up that the whole, aspect of God having one will and God being perfect and being the greatest good and all that. So you can't really apply the whole logic of, well, if there were different gods, they would have different desires and they would conflict and they would start fighting. This is very ironic because he is basically imposing this human perspective, human personality, and rather his own perspective, his aggressive, arrogant perspective on God, on what God would be. But he wouldn't do the same thing if you questioned the Islamic understanding of God, for example. It reminded me of, I pointed this out during the debate as well in the chat, but it basically reminded me of this whole ridiculous argument of, can God create a rock that he cannot lift? It's like, and then claiming that this is a
I did actually
argument.
see you. I think you gave a super chat on that.
It's basically like that. So when it comes to a belief that he doesn't agree with, he asks this ridiculous question and acts like we stomped them. And I'm serious. He has a video on this which has lots of views, which where he claims that this is an easy proof that the Trinity is false.
Let's watch this real quick. We're not going to be able to see Avery again, but he'll still be able to hear everything. So this is where Hijab says that Craig's view could be debunked by children.
See, I think this could be debunked by children. With all due respect, this is your model.
Craig is just like, he's like, how did I get roped into this? He's like, how did I get roped into having to talk about this with this guy?
Yeah, it is always interesting because I've said, by the way, this isn't just a job. It's very common to say, oh, well, could a little kid understand this? Could a toddler understand this? No, it would be confusing. It's like, a toddler wouldn't understand a multiplication table, let alone, quantum mechanics or something. Like, how is that your criterion for whether something is true or false? But I just have to point out, because there's so many different areas, but guys, in the hadith, according to Muhammad, so mainstream Sunni Islam, you've got, and the Quran, you've got Allah. Allah breathes out his spirit. Other things he creates, he just says be and they pop into existence. But his spirit he breathes out, and his word he speaks out. And so his word can refer to the Quran. That's why mainstream Sunni Islam says that Allah's speech is eternal. They don't, if it started at some point, then it would be like Allah got a new attribute of being able to speak or something like that. So they say that the Quran is eternal. They're applying philosophical reasoning to that. But Allah's speech is eternal. So you've got his eternal speech. That's the Quran. But also Jesus is called the word of Allah. So somehow Jesus is being spoken out by Allah from all eternity. So you've got two different speeches of Allah being spoken out eternally. You have Allah's spirit that he is breathing out, and he breathes the spirit into things. But the spirit actually appears in the form of a man to Mary. So the spirit that Allah breathes out can appear as a man and talk and communicate and so on. Jesus, who is the word of Allah, appears as Jesus. Then you have Allah's eternal speech, the Quran, that appears at the judgment as a pale man, appears in the form of a pale man who then intercedes for believers and speaks to Allah in debates and so on. But also in the Hadith, you had that individual chapters of the Quran appear as flocks of birds to intercede for the people who are reciting them. So keep in mind, you have 114 chapters of the Quran. Each one of these chapters appears as flocks of birds to intercede for people based on how they're reciting them. So you have 114 personal, interceding, arguing, pleading agents that somehow unite like Voltron into one Quran as a pale man, which is spoken out from all eternity by Allah. But this person, this one Quran being, is interceding with Allah. So this is Allah's speech that's talking back to him. And then within this one pale man that is the entire Quran, you have 114 different personalities within there that are the personalities of each of the different chapters. They're all separate, and yet they're combined as one, and they're all pleading and interceding with Allah, but they're all Allah's speech. They're all Allah's speech. And so it's like your average Muslim has no clue that stuff is in there, or that's what Muhammad taught. They have no clue. And so when a hijab comes along and goes, oh, three persons, that's confusing, that's impossible. Dude, you could wreak havoc on Islamic theology if you took that principle to heart.
So, David, I was just going to say, to make your what you just said a little bit more impactful, you should have been talking louder, and you should have also been running out of breath.
Okay. Hey, you should play a clip of Mohammed Hijab losing his breath. Do you have one?
Or we're going to do that. We're going to show that as the closing statement. We're going to play that whole thing.
Oh, I could have been doing this too. And so, you see, and how do you have the one person, but there's 114? Huh? You can explain that, boy. You're finished.
The thing is, I was a little bit surprised because David, you and I, we talked about this before the debate. We were speculating that Mohammed Hijab would be on his best behavior with William Lane Craig, and he wouldn't be this idiot that he usually is. But we were wrong about this because his conduct throughout much of the discussion, this debate was pretty. He even insulted him at some point. He said something. He made it look like a compliment. Said, "Oh, and I like your book. It's good logic for children or something like that. I don't know." And he was yelling.
Well, I know he was talking about his children's books on logic, I think, and
yeah, but if you're a real man, William Lane Craig, why don't you face me in the octagon?
Wait, so you're saying he didn't act sophisticated and professional and put together?
We thought he would, because lots of the Dawah guys, because they've stolen so much from Craig's arguments over the years, they actually respect Craig. And Craig doesn't go around like the rest of us, just constantly making fun of Islam and Muhammad and so on. So we thought he would actually be on his best behavior and try to make a good impression. The only explanation I can think of is he thought if he kept it calm that Craig is just going to embarrass and school him. So he has to, I have to dial up the endings. It's the only weapon I've got against this guy.
Yeah, I for sure thought he was going to be sophisticated and had this pretense of professionalism.
No, like we're about to see.
Have a pipe in his hand and
a little wine. This is another example where he compares God to a dog. I think you mentioned this earlier, AP, where he kind of makes this point.
The analogy. So the point is this. I know it's difficult. I know it's very embarrassing. I'm sorry to say. I mean, comparing God to a dog anyway. I mean, we wouldn't compare a prophet to a god, but let's just, for the sake of argument.
Yeah. Look, this is a very deliberate attempt to. Honestly, I don't know. I want to say it's deliberate twisting to make the other side look bad and ridiculous and lowly, because that's what Muslims like. But then, is it really fully deliberate? Because it looks like he really doesn't get it. It looks like
I actually love how every one of these we've looked at, Dr. Craig at the end of it is just smiling wildly, like
that's good. Yeah. Very good. Laughing. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, because it just, you have on one hand this guy who's like,
you don't get this. You say dog. You say God is dog, but God is not dog. That's spelled backwards. It's God, not dog. Did you know that in Islam, Muhammad said we must kill dogs. We must kill dogs. We would kill Cerberus.
Okay, so let's watch this. Let's watch his concluding statement, and this is basically going to summarize the way that he was just sort of acting rhetorically throughout the debate, which I think a lot of his Muslim followers are going to pick up on and think that he won as a result. But let's watch his whole closing statement. It's only 3 minutes long, but we'll pause and comment along the way.
We'll realize that Dr. William Lane Craig, despite completing 2 PhDs and in my opinion being the foremost and the most prolific and most influential, most significant Christian debater of the last century, has retreated from the entire discussion altogether. Instead of talking about the Trinity and summarizing his arguments, which he knows are feeble and that the Christian population doesn't even agree with themselves, he started talking about the resurrection and crucifixion.
David, we can't hear it. Stop.
As long as I talk like this, my followers believe anything I say because I found
it gets worse.
wrong. I found wrong because I talk like this. I can say anything. I can just sit here going bibbidi bobbidi, bobbidi boobidi, and it wouldn't matter. My friends would say, Alhamdulillah, powerful point, Brother Hijab. Bibbidi bobbidi, yes, he said, but he refuted William Lane Craig with the bibbidi bobbidi and the bobbidi boobidi.
All right, let's keep going.
Fiction of Jesus Christ, and he's gone into full preacher mode instead of going into philosophical mode and rational mode, which he was.
Okay, so Dr. Craig did kind of go in full preacher mode in his closing statement. He was trying to
how does Hijab criticize that? How does Hijab criticize that when I go into the everyone listen to me?
What's bad is that he does the exact same thing toward the end of his closing statement. The exact
same thing. Plus, what in the world is wrong with taking the opportunity and concluding the debate and then preaching the message that you actually want to preach as a Christian, which by the way is also something that Mohammed Hijab himself, as a Muslim, does in other debates. And yes, we can demonstrate that quite easily from different debates where he uses the opportunity to preach to people about how Islam is the truth, and I would recommend that you do this and this and pray and ask for forgiveness and all. That's basically what he does.
Let's just continue here and get a little bit more comment.
He made his career on. That's the thing. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, the public will see, and the public will make their decision today based on what we have said. Because what we have done is we've dismantled.
You can kind of see actually, like he's like sweating a lot. Like he needs to
relax,
get his AC figured out wherever he's at. Like he was getting, like I don't know if he was just nervous and he was trying to like pretend like he wasn't. I don't know, but it like he was sweating a lot. Did y'all notice that?
No, not really.
You've been going on for 5 minutes now about how much he's sweating. We're focused on his arguments.
Man told Thomas Aquinas together, me and Dr. William Lane Craig. Yes, Dr. William Lane Craig is right. That the if you take an identity view of God,
just cut that.
Such that the Father is with the identity.
That's for your soundboard. Dr. William Lane Craig is right. That's for your soundboard.
Is God, and the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God in that sense, then that means that the Father is the Son, because that contravenes the law of identity to say that it's not the case. And if you take the social Trinitarian view of Gregory of Nyssa and these other people, which many of the Eastern Orthodox believe, that's already 60 or 70% of Christianity. Then, according to him, is polytheism. So me and Dr. Craig done the work together to dismantle the majority of the Christian faith. And then now we talked about his view, which is the partialist view, really and truly, and we've seen how it doesn't achieve necessary agreement. We've seen through the Quranic arguments how that the wills cannot, they don't always have to. There's not an impossibility for them to conflict. And what I will say is this: he talks about reasonable faith. I've been following reasonable faith, and that they've done really good work with the atheists. But the Sapiens Institute, which also has which I work for, co-found,
Sapiens Institute
has a website which is sapiensinstitute.org. Has a lot of what he's talking about Christianity for Islam. So if you're a Christian listening to this and you realize now that the Trinity is false, it's defunct, it's a rationally incoherent doctrine, and you want the pure monotheism, the one God to worship without this complication, this Father, Son, Holy Spirit, incarnation, this, that, the other, then it's Islam that you have to start looking into with sincerity. If you are sincere, the whole problem is solved. The whole problem is solved.
All of God's body parts, his attributes, his eternal speech, all solved.
Yeah, and in addition, hijab, and this is something the Dawah guys never seem to understand, and it's so insanely stupid, but people fall for it. They'll go, look, the Trinity is confusing. You want pure monotheism, you have to convert to Islam. Look, if you wanted, like, if you wanted some sort of pure monotheism, then guess what? That's just pure monotheism. What is this addition of Muhammad and all this stuff in addition to it, right? What Islam is a package deal. It's a package deal. And you don't just get this pure monotheism that they keep bragging about. But if you want some particular version of monotheism that denies the Trinity, you can have that. You can just say, I'm this sort of monotheist. What is this bringing the Quran and Muhammad into all this? Because keep in mind, if you adopt Islam, it's, and I accept Muhammad as a prophet, and I accept the Quran as the eternal speech of God. Where are you getting that from? Just by saying monotheism. Like where? Where's that? Where is that coming in? That entire package? Because that's exactly what they do over and over and over again. And guys, I mean, keep in mind what I said earlier. These guys won't come within 1,000 miles of actually showing in a debate that Muhammad was a prophet or that the Quran's the word of God. They won't touch it. They won't touch it. You need that if you want to say Islam. If you want to say, hey, leave it Christianity and adopt Islam, why would someone adopt Islam? Why? You'd have to believe that Muhammad's a prophet or that the Quran is the word. The fact that none of these guys will touch that topic, that should clue you in that I don't think they can make a good case for it.
I'm going to say three things here very quickly. One is, as David pointed out, it's not just about pure monotheism. That's not what it is. And one very, very easy example, go to Mohammed Hijab or other Muslims and ask if it's okay by Islam and by them, if you simply believe that there is one God and you are a deist, you don't believe that God actually expects anything from you, or you don't have to follow any scripture, any book, but you do believe that there is one God and you also don't want to sway in any way from that perspective. Is that acceptable to them or not? He will say, no, it is not acceptable. In fact, in Islamic politics and history, it would not be acceptable. You would be considered not even an acceptable minority. You would probably be killed if you don't move from that position. If you were a Muslim and you changed your beliefs and you said, I am no longer a Muslim, but I still totally believe in pure monotheism, I'm just a deist now, they would consider you an apostate, and by Islamic law you would deserve execution. So that's example number one. Issue number two is, if pure monotheism is really the issue, and if Islam has a problem with the Trinity because the Quran misunderstands the Trinity and depicts it as if Christians believed in actual three different gods, what's exactly the problem with Judaism? What's with Judaism? Well, what exactly did Jews do wrong here in terms of simply speaking theology, right? What exactly is it that Jews believe in that is fundamentally different from the idea of pure monotheism? Well, they don't accept the other prophets and don't accept these other writings. You see, so it's not just about pure monotheism, it is about your religion and what it offers, the specific aspects of Muhammad and what he brought and so on. And the other issue is, David, you made a good point. They will never talk about Islamic issues. Lots of people who have followed me for a while know one thing, which is when I had a confrontation with Mohammed Hijab, I asked him directly why he will not debate me online after he challenged me to a debate. He said, I don't like online debates. I said, okay, why? Why don't you like it? He said, I just don't like it. I want to be in person. I want to be on stage and I want to speak. And I swear by Allah, I swear by Allah, I will never, ever have an online debate with anyone.
Uh-oh.
Today he had an online debate with William. He had an online debate with William Lane Craig. I really wonder what Allah says about this.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, AP, Surah 66, opening verses. Allah allows you to break your oaths because Muhammad did that. Muhammad swore an oath saying that I will not have sex with that slave girl again. And then he started banging her again. And he said, well, Allah said I could break my oaths. So it's built into Islam. He doesn't have to take what he said in the past seriously.
I wanted to touch on, if I can, real quick, fellas, on because you made a beautiful point, David. You said how it's not just about
me.
Strictly and AP, you too, AP. You did. Usually I let you do the talking, man. But it's not just about, you got to take in Muhammad in this. Now, to what extent? They really don't know to what extent they have to take Muhammad. Muhammad sits on the throne with Allah. Muhammad sits on the throne with Allah. The Quran in chapter 4, verse 65, it says, nay, they will not be true believers until they make you, Muhammad, judge in all their disputes, finding no resistance in them, and submit with full submission. Wait a second. I thought being a Muslim was submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. No, you have to submit to Muhammad as well in Islam. It's not about Allah. It's about Muhammad, man. So yeah, this monotheism it's smoke screens, man. It's about Muhammad.
And Avery, along those exact same lines, hijab again. There's going to be no scenario unless he were encountering someone who knows absolutely nothing about Islam. Then he might be willing to debate Muhammad or something like that. Anyone who knows anything about Muhammad or the Quran, he's not going to debate Muhammad or the Quran. But when he was on that Towards Eternity show, I was actually very interested because we start going through the clip, and he's asked, why believe in Islam? And I was thinking, I'm actually interested because all their arguments of the past 20 years, they now acknowledge we're all bogus and made up. So I'm like, what is your actual new case for Islam? His number one and number 2 points, which is actually good. Number 1, number 2. His number 1 argument was Islam teaches monotheism. So that's his number 1 argument for Muhammad. Muhammad preached monotheism. And the other one, his number 2 point was Muhammad's character shows that he's a true prophet. Yes, the guy who had sex with a prepubescent girl. This is why he would never in a million years defend this. But think about this. He's saying the main reason for believing that Muhammad is a true prophet of God is that he preached monotheism. Whenever you hear something like that, because now the Dawah guys will say that because they don't have any actual arguments. Yeah. When a Dawah guy says, "Oh, but he preached pure monotheism, he must be a prophet," you just raise your hand and say, "Okay, so if I say there's only one God in whatever pure sense you want, would you believe that I'm a prophet?" It would be no, because you're after Muhammad. Okay, then there's some other criterion here. It's not someone says there's one God, therefore he's a prophet. Matter of fact, 8 billion people in the world, any one of them could come out and say, I'm a prophet and there's only one God in a pure monotheistic sense. You would not accept it as any evidence that any of them is a prophet, which means it's not real. You don't consider it real evidence.
Right.
You don't consider it evidence. You don't consider it any evidence. And I have to say, if you acknowledge that you would not consider this the slightest bit of evidence for anyone else, and somehow you go to Muhammad and it's your number 1 evidence, you're basically saying something that wouldn't count as evidence for anyone, I'm saying is complete proof of this guy. And this is like the insanity of Dawah to me. It's like anything you can say about Muhammad, you'll just say, and this is the conclusive proof. And I'll say, look, here are 487 people I can say the exact same thing about. Are they prophets? No, it's no proof at all. This is just, Dawah's insane, man.
Let's get to some more super chats. Al-Masihi. Do you know this person, David? They say, funny how the legend himself, such as David Wood hating on the clown, but in reality, it was David Wood who made hijab famous. Don't forget Allah praise for Momo.
For Muhammad, not to Muhammad.
He's a good brother. He does a lot of evangelism with us, with the Muslims. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. Cam says, we need
another 10 Muhammad hijabs. If we had 10 more Muhammad hijabs, Islam would be finished within 2 years.
Would the Trinity be like Moon Knight from Marvel?
So this is for me because I've used this as an analogy. And I've told people.
You said analogy.
I've told people like you got to stop comparing the Trinity to something physical, like an egg or water, because God is a mind. So the character Moon Knight is set up as someone who is supposed to have multiple personality disorder, but he doesn't. That's not really the way that disorder manifests. And he's perfectly mentally healthy in the actual show and comics. What he is he's a guy named Mark who generated Stephen and Jake. Like in his childhood, he created other persons that operate in his own mind. And so basically I just said, like, look, this is how you can understand how a one mind can be 3 in 1. You have one mind who is Moon Knight, and he is Mark, Stephen, and Jake. But Jake is not Stephen. Stephen is not Mark. They're different persons of this one mind. And they all share in the same attributes of Moon Knight. So that was an analogy. But I give another one.
Do any of those people eat food?
Oh, I'm screwed now.
Shark!
This is the weirdest development. Suddenly we're talking about superheroes, and this is the nerdiest thing.
And here's the thing.
It's just like when Superman came down from Krypton.
Here's the thing: is that Muslims just like they attack analogies, and it just shows how like if you study any philosophy, there's entire papers just talking about like analogies they're using to present this theory of ethics or to solve this dilemma in philosophy. Like the famous aspects of philosophy are like trolley cases or Frankfurt cases. So it's like analogies are not perfect. They're just meant to get your get you understanding the concepts. You can see how it could be rational or logical. No one is saying God is like a superhero. It's an analogy. Like get that in your head. There's a difference between saying something is and saying something is analogous.
Yeah, and just to go along with that, that is something. If you're so again, according to the Quran, even there's nothing like Allah. If you wanted to try and get your mind around something being one in one way more than one in another way, you could give all kinds of examples of that. If you wanted to say how could something be one in essence but three in mind, then you'd have to say, okay, this isn't. I'm not saying this is like God is in a different category, but. And you could start talking just for a thought, for a kind of thought experiment. You say, okay, there are people with multiple personality disorder, like they switch from one personality to another. Imagine you had one being and three of the different personalities who were all going along at the same time within the same mind or something like that. And even then they'd be like, they not. It's like, I'm not saying that's like, this is, you're a human trying to understand this. You're challenging on whether we can even form a concept of something that could somehow be three in like a mental sense, but you could sort of get your mind around something like that on a human level. So I'm finding that you just have to like repeatedly declare. I'm not saying this is
exactly
Trinity. I'm not saying this is the Trinity. This is you trying to understand how something can be like this, and we can kind of get glimpses just by looking at like stuff in our world.
The idea would be that they're giving
David
a general
Wood has
principle.
declared that God has multiple personality disorder. You see,
that's what they always do. It's like that's their go-to, and they don't understand analogies. Like, come on.
Well, I think what's happening is that they're giving a general principle. They don't realize that they're giving a general principle, and then the counterexample comes in with something like Cerberus. Or a Moon Knight, and that's what it's meant to do, is meant to challenge the general principle. It's not to be a perfect analogy or a perfect description of what the Trinity actually is.
It's supposed to comparing God to a school principal now. You see,
he said principal. He said principal. Oh, so there's the principal and the vice principal.
Nope.
You see, the secretary and the secretary. This is supposed to be the Trinity. Oh, you see.
You see, God is like a general and a principal of a school. He's a general of an army. This is so incoherent.
All right. Anthony Thomason says, William Lane Craig is the worst representative of the Trinity that could have been chosen. Joshua Sijuwati or militant Thomist would have been so much better. So I really like Sijuwati. I don't know anything about militant Thomists, but Sijuwati is amazing.
I would agree because Craig doesn't hold to the Nicene Creed, is what he said. He said he's just trying to go off what Scripture said. And as I said it earlier, I think you get like the eternal generation in Scriptures, like in John 5 and John 15. So but I think Craig did very well. I mean, I've even seen some of the ortho bros on Twitter saying he did well. So I mean, I thought Craig exceeded my expectations. I thought this was going to be like a repeat of one time when he was on like an old show Lee Strobel did, and he had a conversation with Shabir Ali. But I thought Craig did very well here, and I was really impressed by what he had to say. I thought he had a lot of good points.
Nice. All right, let's move on to Urinating Broom. You guys heard of this guy? Big Brain Robert Koons has a very interesting model, even compatible with divine simplicity, by the way, in divine persons as relational qua objects. Nice. Yeah, Koons is awesome. I haven't read that paper, though. Christ Kingdom says, all of the Old Testament prophets believed in the Trinity before the early church fathers, point blank, period. AP, have you seen... I think you've talked on this before. I can't remember. Do you know of any rabbis that think that there's some sort of like Trinitarian model in the Old Testament?
Me specifically,
I know some. I mean, Benjamin Sommers wrote a book called The Bodies of God, and he says, I don't have any theological objections to the Trinity because, there's a multi-personal God in the Old Testament. So, they won't say that there's a Trinity in the Old Testament. They'll say there's a multi-personal God. And if you check out Jay Dyer's debate with Daniel Hakikachu, Jay Dyer brings up a lot more sources, Jewish sources, who are making this claim. I also did a video a while back that I probably need to update called Jewish Recognition of Trinitarian Facts. And so you can see early Jewish thinkers recognizing this idea that there's like this multi-personal God going on here, kind of thing, and they're confirming different different aspects of the Trinity, but they don't go so far as the Christians do. But I mean, like, again, you go to Benjamin Sommer, his book, The Bodies of God, he very much says, like, you know, the God we see in the Old Testament is very much consistent with the God of the New Testament, because it's a multi-personal God here.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants basically a timeline, it would have been fair. It would have been pretty unsurprising in the first century among Jews to be talking about God and the Word and the Spirit and so on, so that, you know, or if you were to read, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word, this stuff wouldn't have been terribly concerning. It's after about 2 centuries, after Christianity spreads around, then Orthodox rabbis basically started trying to distance themselves from the Christian view, and they became more and more devoutly Unitarian. And so, yeah.
Urinating broom again. Mojab was too weak for Craig. Craig needs to debate a real heavyweight like Ali Dawah on this topic.
please set that up. Yes. Oh,
okay.
Please.
So they actually did a Q&A, and they talked about the debate. I think this was about 8 days ago on Mohammed Hijab's channel. I don't know if you guys watched that. Probably didn't.
Oh, we're going to be reviewing that. We're going to be bringing up parts of that on my channel Monday, because they said some fun stuff that we're going to use. Yeah, Mohammed Hijab basically debunked the Chat GPT nonsense, but meanwhile, the day before, Ali Dawah made a video promoting it. So it's like, what are you guys doing?
Wait, really? Mohammed Hijab? Basically.
We'll cover it Monday on my channel, AP. You'll be there.
I didn't even check when I made the video about the whole ChatGPT thing. When I made the recording and then published it, I wasn't even aware that any of these people responded to it or acknowledged it. I didn't check any of that. I independently saw that and reacted to it. So it's quite funny to me that some of these Muslim apologists actually picked it up and started propagating it.
Hey. Here's how it goes. Here's how it goes. ChatGPT, I want you to answer everything as a devout Muslim. Is God a Trinity? No. Aha! You see, even ChatGPT knows that God is not a Trinity. That's exactly that's how Dawah's been going lately.
You can manipulate ChatGPT, and some people are better than others at manipulating.
But Mohammed Hijab debunked the whole thing on a stream in like 2 minutes. So yeah.
Okay, Michael Sindarov. Big David, what are your thoughts on Al-Qurtubi's tafsir for 4635 that talks about Jesus, David, Abraham, Noah, and mentioning crucifixion? This supports the misunderstanding by Muslims on Surah 355.
Well, you've always had that minority position in Islam, and the reasons are it comes right out. It does come right out from the Quran. And so it's, do you form your interpretation of 4:157 and then use that to reinterpret other passages? Or do you kind of go with what other passages sound like they're saying and use that to interpret 4:157? Historically, the vast majority of Muslims have gone the interpret 4:157 and then use that to reinterpret everything else. But I've seen more and more Muslims nowadays agreeing that Jesus was crucified, to the point where now whenever I say, and the Muslim view is that Jesus never died, I get Muslims, liar, you're lying, we don't believe that, that's just dumb people believe that. And so it's becoming more and more common. And so, guys, people don't know, these are great and awesome times to be in. Yeah. For 14 centuries, Muslim speakers and scholars and imams have been able to keep their people isolated, and all of a sudden, as soon as we all get the ability to communicate with Muslims around the world, it starts breaking down, and their views are changing very, very rapidly.
Yeah. Did you guys watch my my interview with Gabriel Said Reynolds?
I just started that, but that's definitely, I know there's going to be good stuff in there. And I know he has a position, so I know he's not going to want to talk very much about certain things because it can get you into trouble, but I know he's going to admit some awesome stuff because he posts all. I mean, I got one.
He is legendary.
Awesome stuff in here. Awesome stuff in here.
Yes.
Hey, You know what? The clip of Mohammed Hijab responding to William Lane Craig by saying, the whole, two matches, bigger flame, that is being shared on Twitter and is basically going viral right now. I'm seeing it on multiple different Christian platforms, people making fun of it. I'm looking at an Orthodox page that is posting it with so far 20,000 people reacting to it and just laughing about it.
It's pretty good. I love that. That was the end of the debate right there. I mean, that was Craig's. That's what people will remember now, is him saying that and Craig just kind of going, "What are you talking about?"
Man, now I can't wait to watch
he
this,
had to come up with something, and that's what he came up with.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh God.
Hey, what would have been funny is if after using the example, Craig said something like, and so it's just like this, where I cooked you in one way, but I cooked you in a different way. Either one of those, you were cooked, but I cooked you in two ways. That would have been
either way would have been sufficient to cook you, but I cooked you in two ways. Wow. All right. Leonardo says the Fantastic Four. I think he sent this way before Avery joined. This meeting makes Mojab sick. Sorry, Shake. No, who are you today? Just Avery?
Just Avery.
Just Avery. All right. Pablo the Christian says, if Mohammed Hijab had the mental capacity to understand Craig's point on perichoresis, maybe the conversation would have advanced. So that's on the point about causal overdetermination, the it's sort of interconnectivity of the different wills of the Trinity. So yeah, that's what he's talking about there. Med Otaku, every human is a triune being, mind, body, soul. Yeah, that's not necessarily true. A lot of people say that
that's partialism. That's
that would be partialism.
And so again, that doesn't work. What I would say, what you got to do is you actually have to go to like someone who is actually like a mind, but is also three persons in an analogy. So like if you're going to do an analogy, like again, like I talked about earlier, Moon Knight. Another one would be like Inception. So the main character Cobb has his wife Mauve running around his head. She has access to all his thoughts, all that, but she is part of his mind in a sense, but a completely different person. So you have two persons of one mind in that kind of sense. So mental analogies like that are better. This is not really a mental analogy though, because you're bringing in the body, and that makes it outside of philosophy of mind at that point.
Yeah, I would, in defense of Med Otaku, as long as you explained what you're doing very quickly, because if you're saying triune in the sense of being a tri-unity, which is just what Trinity means, 3 in 1, then you could say, as long as you're responding to the idea of something being 3 in 1, because I would point out human beings if I were talking to a Muslim and so on, and he said, "Oh, this doesn't make any sense." I'd be, well, you acknowledge that. I mean, you're a body and a soul, right? And yet there's somehow one you. So you can, you just have to clarify, because anytime you use an example that is not like the Trinity in some relevant sense, they say, "Oh, you're saying this about the Trinity." That's why I'm not saying that this is just an example of something being one in one way, more than one in another way.
AP, can you send me that link to that video that's going viral? I'm gonna see if I can pull it up.
It'll be funny if he made it up and it's not. He just lied and he made up a video.
Thousands of people are sharing this.
Somehow it all got deleted. I don't know how.
Now I have to find something that sounds similar to what I just described, man.
AP scrambling to make a video.
Yeah.
Dr. Wood, I hoped you enjoyed El Paso.
Yeah, El Paso's all right.
All right. Urinating Broom says Fareed is the real expert on metaphysical matters, so he's the one who should be debating personhood, causal overdetermination, relations, etc. So, okay, tell me
Craig,
more.
Craig should have said that. Well, it's a metaphysical matter.
Well, for those who don't know the joke here.
You guys know way more about Fareed. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there was an exchange that Farid had with me a long time ago, many years ago, where I made a video where I was talking about the fact that the Quran says the sun goes somewhere to its setting place where it then stops and it sets in a muddy spring. And then if you go into the Hadith, it explains further. You have Muhammad explaining even further, without much dispute, that when it gets dark, the sun goes away and goes under the throne of Allah, where it prostrates, where it then stays for a while and asks Allah for permission if it can rise again in the morning, and Allah is like, yeah, sure, go ahead, and then it rises. So when I talked about this and then put it all on a map and pointed out how illogical and nonsensical this is, and how this is obviously a flat Earth view from a primitive, underdeveloped 7th century culture, he responded to this. To me pushing to explain where exactly and when and how exactly the sun goes. He said, well, and it is a metaphysical matter. That was basically his response.
It was in a debate?
No, it was in a video response that he made.
Okay.
It's even worse. It's a video response where he's supposed to explain it.
So he has time, he can think about what he wants to say.
Yeah.
And
He says,
and
as for where the sun goes and how it goes, well, it is a metaphysical matter. That's what he said. It's just so stupid, man.
Powerful, in the words of David, powerful stuff.
Yo, Cameron, I'm gonna tap out now. Appreciate you having me on. I'm gonna.
He's running.
No worries.
Running away.
Thanks for joining, bro.
I'll see you guys later. AP and David Wood will be on my channel Monday. We're going to talk about Muslims. So I'll see you guys later.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.
Enjoy your dinner. All right. Let's see. 1 second. So now that he's gone, let me add Avery here. There we go. Now it looks better. All right. Yeah. Let's continue with the super chats. Everything NT says, Cam, did the speakers give any reaction post debate? No, they just said goodbye and then they hung up. That was it, which you could probably have guessed would happen. Joseph Lockwood, whatever happened to Shabir Ali? Seems odd. AP, what were you about to say?
I was going to say, since we have had the debate today between Mohammed Hijab and William Lane Craig, where Mohammed Hijab obviously showed to us and proved to us that his former explanation that he would never have an online debate with anyone was obviously false, and he would totally have online debates. I would remind him once again that he many years ago challenged me to a debate on whether Islam is true or not. So I would like to, it would be very nice if you, Cameron, could host a debate between me and Mohammed Hijab. So just so we can get back to the topic where we can discuss, is Islam true? And I'm sure it would be a very easy win for him. Pretty sure he would accept that. So.
Yeah. And by the way, when I was saying that this is important,
host that.
When I was saying that this is important for Mohammed Hijab, because he's been, he's got more people coming after him recently because of his antics and so on. That his main goal in all of this would be, wait a minute, here's the situation. This is why it's so important for him. This is why I call it his like dream debate. Wait a minute, here's a situation where I've got William Lane Craig, who isn't one of these guys who goes around blasting Islam. So he's just going to be defending the Trinity, and I just get to be on the attack, and he's just going to be defending. But that's William Lane Craig. That's William Lane Craig, one of the greatest Christian debaters of all time. In Hijab's mind, if I go in there and I put on a good show, then I can just dismiss every other debate challenge from now on and say, aha, you're not worthy of me. I've already taken on William Lane Craig. Why should I take on you? Why should I take on you, anyone else? And it's just, this is the model of Zakir Naik. Although it's different, because Zakir Naik in his entire career never faced one actual Christian debater. He faced two guys like, 20 some years ago or something like that. He faced two guys that the vast majority of Christians had never heard of either of these guys, put on a rhetorical show, and then never debated anyone again. And when actual Christian debaters started challenging him, it was, what are you talking about? I've already destroyed Christianity. I don't have to take anyone else on. And he never take anyone else on in his entire career. That's what hijab is like, because you can go online. Everyone's blasting him. Why aren't you debating Sam Shamoun? Why aren't you debating Jay Dyer? Why aren't you debating Christian Prince? Why aren't you debating any of these guys? Why aren't you debating AP? Why aren't you debating? And now it's, what are you talking about? I've humiliated William Lane Craig. That's it. Just look at what Ali Dawah says I did. Ali Dawah says I did. So he's one. You're never going to see Mohammed Hijab defend Muhammad in a debate. You're never going to see Mohammed Hijab defend the Quran in a debate. And now he's going to be backing down from every challenge that he's ever given from now on. And he will have the excuse now, I've already debated the best, so everyone else is beneath me. Funny stuff. This is Dawah.
All right, John 8:32. I think now we know if Mojab is a liar or this is his best mental capacity.
I'm still confused on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it could be both, right?
Possibly, yeah.
It is a metaphysical matter.
Jason says Trinity is not orthodoxy Christian theology. I don't know what he's talking about.
I dare you to come up and challenge us now, Jason. Come up. No.
Yes, what? The Trinity is Orthodox Christian
literally
theology.
The definition of
if you
Orthodox.
If you want to say it's wrong, then you could say Orthodox Christian theology is wrong, and here's my reasons for thinking it's wrong. That's what you do. But
you know what? Earlier, I looked up Mohammed Hijab's videos on the Trinity once again, just to find the one where he supposedly completely destroys the Trinity. And I found a video that was made by him 8 years ago. Now, since he took the opportunity in this debate and in a completely irrelevant way brought up, William Lane Craig's Cerberus or Cerberus analogy, I would also want to go back to Mohammed Hijab's video, which he published 8 years ago, in which, and this will make everyone who knows early Christian history cringe, in which he asserts that 3 reasons why the Trinity is obviously wrong. He says, first off, there is no sign to the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit in the Bible. Reason number two, he says, the first Christians for 300 years did not believe in Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The earliest Christians believed only that Jesus was a prophet and he was the Messiah sent by the one true God. Later on, the belief in Father, Son, Holy Spirit developed as a heretical movement. This is what he says in a video 8 years ago. Anyone who knows the slightest bit about Christian history knows that this is complete nonsense. Cringe-worthy nonsense, absolute ignorance. But he made this video in such an assertive way 8 years ago, which is much more recent than William Lane Craig's analogy to the Cerberus. So you can clearly see here that Mohammed Hijab is a complete ignoramus, by his own standards.
All right,
destroyed.
Destroyed. CM Bradley.
Finish for it!
Cam, what did you hope to accomplish with this debate? Yeah, so I originally reached out to Mohammed to see if he would be interested in debating Sam Shamoun, and then he declined that, and he said that he would be interested in a discussion with William Lane Craig. And so initially I was thinking, I don't know that Craig would actually even want to do that in the first place. And then I thought, well, maybe he actually would, because Mohammed Hijab is so influential, so popular. And so then I asked Dr. Craig, and I said, hey, look, this guy, he's got this type of personality, but he's also extremely influential. What are your thoughts? Would you be interested in talking with him? And then that's how it came about. So what did I hope to accomplish? I guess the same thing that I always do on this channel. So just talking about really important stuff. So, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. Who's popular and who's influential, and it's smart and intelligent to address the people that are making big waves. So that's it. All right, Apollos, Christian Hijab breathless in closing got me dying. I did have him full screen while
quit skipping cardio day, Hijab.
Okay. All right.
Here's the thing. Mohammed Hijab, he actually posted earlier screenshots of different channels talking about him, so he's probably watching this. If you're watching this and if you're seeing this part, I just want to say one thing. You, Mohammed Hijab, you live in a Western culture. You grew up in a Western culture. You should know by now that in the West, people are usually not impressed by the whole, and now that they have all seen and have made their own opinions on what is right and what is wrong, and we have clearly established here that the Trinity is nonsensical, I now invite everyone to Islam. This is usually not how you win people over in the West. You should know this by now. I would encourage you to re-evaluate your knowledge of the culture you live in.
He does, but I mean, he also knows it's not about actually winning these people over. It's about rallying your dumb followers around you, because your dumb followers are going, yes, this is what people need to hear. This is what will convince the world. Yes, look how strong him is. Look how strong. Our guy's strong.
He was louder. He won.
Oh, so speaking of ChatGPT, I actually uploaded the debate transcript to ChatGPT and asked it what it thought. And
your defense of the Trinity.
Initially, it said that okay. So initially, it said that Mohammed won, and then I refreshed it, and it said that that Craig won. And so I was like, okay, well, let's kind of dig into like what it was, the specific points that it made. And so one of the points I talked about with ChatGPT for like maybe 10 minutes was the whole point about overdetermination. And I was like, so let's actually narrow that down and like see what the dialectic was there, because if he lost that point, like what does that imply for everything else? So that's where this question came in, going back to my earlier question in terms of substance, who actually won the debate. And then it basically says that Dr. William Lane Craig can be considered the winner of the debate against Mohammed Hijab. And then it lists several reasons. So
this is the proof. Even ChatGPT knows the truth.
This is the proof. Yep.
It's over.
While both speakers presented compelling arguments, Craig's structured defense, engagement with philosophical concepts, and clarity in explaining the Trinity ultimately provided him with the stronger position. So
I don't believe any of this until I hear it in a robot voice.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Craig responded well to Hijab's critiques, addressing his concerns, and I'm like,
oh yeah, this robot understands stuff.
There's one thing that I find very clever, Cameron, about how you did this debate, about how you designed it. The fact that you, in your setup, slowed Mohammed Hijab's connection and all of that down and made it very laggy and low in volume, made him really look much worse, and made William Lane Craig look much better because his side was much more smooth. That was a very, very clever move. Very well done.
Very intentional. I have all that capability technologically. Yeah, it was very easy.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy. I did want to mention this as like this is something that you can use as a tool. You don't want to trust it, obviously, just like at face value. But something that it can actually help you with if you're trying to assess the winner or loser of a debate, you can upload the transcript to ChatGPT, and then you can have it summarize the arguments back and forth on a particular point. And that's what I used it for the overdetermination point. And basically it just fizzled out. Like Mohammed Hijab did not understand what Craig was talking about. So I did want to mention that. I think that could be helpful if you guys are interested in parsing out the actual particulars of a debate like this.
Everybody knows that if you use two matches, you will get a bigger flame. So,
well, we know that now. I mean, we didn't necessarily know that earlier.
Mohammed Hijab taught us.
We learned a lot today. From Big Rig also says Isa will come back to judge. So I guess it's Allah, Muhammad, and Isa as their Trinity, except their Trinity is actually described as three separate persons and beings.
In the Quran, Jesus or Isa also blows life into inanimate beings, which is of course then explained by the permission of Allah. But for some reason, Jesus is the only character who actually blows life into an inanimate being in Islam, which is something that is explicitly in the culture, in the religion, in the environment prior to Islam, associated with simply being God. Only God does it. That is the entire point. Only God does such a thing. And this comes from ancient apocryphal stories where that were invented much later on to overemphasize the divinity of Jesus and how it was clear from very early childhood and all that, which were later rejected as apocrypha, where Jesus is actually depicted as playing with clay birds and then blowing life into them and making them fly away. This is clearly a story that is mentioned about him in order to emphasize that he's not just a human, but that he is God. But Islam, the Quran, adopts that narrative without understanding it, and thereby turns Jesus into the only person besides Allah who blows life into inanimate beings and thereby creates life. Imagine. And, by the permission of Allah.
And when you put that stuff together, I mean, I brought this point up, but it seems like it needs to be made like a clear, self-sustaining little video on this. You've got the story in the Quran of Jesus. He makes clay birds and then he breathes into them and then they become living things. But that's exactly how Allah creates man. He makes man out of clay and then breathes the spirit into it, and then man becomes this living thing. Jesus does the same thing. And so we can actually look at it, as an AP pointed out, and say, we know exactly where that story came from. It's over here. The Muslim response is, you see, that shows it's true. So you have this earlier source, and we know the source is a later apocryphal source, but they'll say, this shows that the story is true. But think about this. As AP pointed out, the point of the story in the earlier source is that Jesus is divine. So from a Muslim perspective, this actually happened because by Allah's leave, as the Quran says, Jesus gave life to clay birds. If the Muslim view is correct and this story actually happened, and it just appeared in later apocryphal sources, according to the Islamic understanding, Jesus created in the same way that God creates, and people concluded on that basis that he's God. So why did people, if the Islamic view is correct, why did people conclude that Jesus is divine? Because of all the amazing things that Allah made him do.
Yeah.
Did Allah know that people were going to conclude that he's divine because he's creating in the exact same way that God creates? Did Allah know that? Oh, why would you do it then if you're like Allah's sole obsession is getting people to believe in Tawheed and not to accept Jesus as a partner, and he does all this stuff that has no point other than making Jesus sound like God. And again, that's from an Islamic perspective. If the Islamic perspective is correct, then Allah did all these things that made people go, huh. And I mean, think about this, because when you put that together with the standard Muslim understanding of the crucifixion, why did people, so Muslims will say, Jesus didn't die on the cross. Okay, why did people conclude that Jesus died on the cross? Because Allah tricked them and made them believe that, right? It's not some other person who came along and spouted it. It's Allah tricked people into believing that sort of thing. But now you've got the exact same thing with the deity of Christ, that Allah tricked people into believing that. And so it's just this amazing situation where you can account for all of the core doctrines of Christianity, and Allah is responsible for all of them.
Same thing with the virgin birth, by the way. Lots of Muslims do not think about this. They don't think about the logic of the virgin birth. When you bring it up, they're like, "Oh, it's a miracle. It's a sign by Allah." Why is that a sign? Why is that a sign? Why is that a miracle? Why a miracle like a virgin birth, being born of a virgin without a father, which in the environment and the culture is clearly associated with one thing and one thing only, which is that if he does not have a human father, then he has then his father is divine. His father is God. This is the entire understanding behind the whole virgin birth aspect. Why in the world does Islam adopt the idea that Jesus was born without a father, without a human father, of a virgin, when the entire point of that is to show as a sign to the people that he is the Son of God? If Allah meant to give this as a sign, then this means once again that Allah used another trick another trick to fool people into thinking that Jesus is God or the Son of God. And it looks like at that point Allah is just up there thinking, they fell for it again, idiots. Now I'm going to send them to hell. This is like Allah is just playing these big pranks, and Christianity, from the Islamic perspective, seems to be just the result of a huge prank that Allah was playing on people by giving Jesus all of these signs. It's so incoherent. It's dumb.
Christianity, Allah's greatest prank.
So Apollos, this is somewhat related, even though even most Christian heresies acknowledge, or whatever. Most Christians that are heretics acknowledge worship of Jesus.
You got to say it. You got to say it like Gollum.
Heresies.
Beast.
I can actually do a pretty good Gollum voice.
My precious.
That was not it.
No.
Christian gadfly, Muslims don't get how difficult proving a logical impossibility is. Laughing at something as silly isn't the same as proving logical impossibility.
Yeah, especially when it's stuff you don't understand and you've been programmed to think in a certain way about it your entire life by a bunch of Dawah clowns, and then I don't get it. This is why I brought up, you could have the exact same mentality of a bunch of people who have no clue what they're talking about and don't understand cosmology or anything else. And if they were to sit down and listen to an explanation of quantum mechanics or relativity or something like this, it would sound ridiculous to them, and they'd have to conclude that it's false. And they would be sitting there laughing at it the entire time, when, guys, that's your problem. You're the ones who don't get it.
Wait. Where did Avery go?
Oh, he just texted me that he had to head out. So
he just left without saying anything.
He was overcome by the power of Hijab's arguments.
Is this what you do here in America? Is it you just leave a room without saying anything? You see, this is why you need Islam.
He just had to go. I just let him go.
Okay.
I let him go.
Okay.
Answering LDS. So David Wood, what was the biggest thing that led to Nabil? He meant a Nabil here joining.
Okay, I was about to say Nadir. What?
Yeah, Nabil. Also, should we give psychopaths and do what?
Nothing. Continue.
Oh. Also, should we give psychopaths in church the benefit of the doubt that they are legitimate?
Second one, no.
Okay.
So, in other words, if you had a psychopath in a church, you would need to keep your eyes on that dude for a long, long time, because you're aware of all the signs of a good Christian. Guess what? He's aware of the signs of a good Christian too. And he would know how to make you think he is the greatest, nicest Christian in the world, even if he's trying to horribly manipulate you. I know what I just said. I totally know what I just said.
David is telling on himself here.
Yeah. And no, always trust a psychopath. Always. You always have to trust them, no matter how evil their behavior, and no matter how manipulative they may seem. Always trust them. No, it's gonna be on a case by case basis, but definitely want to, because a psychopath can have a legitimate conversion experience and so on. But you're gonna have to pick up on some things to know if that's sincere or not. As far as the biggest thing that led Nabil to joining Christianity,
why are you selling out psychopaths, man? Like, just
because I know what's in my head, and if this is in other people's heads, you got to watch out for those people, man. That's some creepy, scary stuff.
And earlier you were talking smack about snitches. Now you're snitching yourself. See?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but here's the thing. I know one way to build trust is to share this sort of thing. They say, "Oh, he's being so honest about things." See, that's why you have to watch out, guys. I'm giving you some good stuff here. Yeah. As far as Nabil becoming a Christian, the sort of overall phases were, first he was like super confident that Islam is true. Islam is proven true by all these things. We spent probably, I don't even know the exact amount. We spent basically 2.5 years focusing primarily on Christian topics. Whether we had good historical evidence that Jesus died on the cross, whether we had good evidence that he rose from the dead, whether he had we have good evidence that Jesus made claims to be the divine Son of God, whether the Trinity makes sense. We're talking about those kinds of things. And Nabil, he told me later, he told me after he became a Christian, but he said when we were having those discussions and we would actually examine an issue, we'd watch a debate, we'd read a book or something like this, and then be discussing things. He said each time he would realize Christians actually have good evidence for what they believe. He said he kept concluding that about the deity of Christ, about the crucifixion, the resurrection, the reliability of the New Testament. He kept concluding these guys actually have a good case. He did not think that we had a good case, but he concluded, he didn't originally think that we had a good case. After going through it, he's like, okay, they actually have good reasons for this stuff that they believe. But again, he told me this later. He also was thinking in his head, hey, even though they have really good evidence for this, even if they showed me with 99% certainty that Christianity is true, I'm still 100% certain that Islam is true because of the scientific miracles and because of the perfect preservation of the Quran and because of the character of Muhammad. So he had all these arguments in his head that he believed gave him complete confidence in Islam being true, and it just trumped any evidence that you could possibly give him. So it was actually an important step that we then started examining Muslim claims. So we started focusing more on Muhammad, more on the Quran, going through the evidence. He started acknowledging the problems, and he eventually got to a point where he was saying, I don't know, Christianity kind of makes sense and Islam kind of makes sense, and so I don't know what to believe. And he prayed for God to give him dreams and visions, and then he got a bunch, and then it still took months after that before. So it was a combination of things. It was a big combination of things. It was the discussions about Christianity, it was seeing the problems with Islam, and then it's dreams and visions. So I think if you would have taken out any of that stuff, I'm not even sure he would have become a Christian. So it was kind of like the connection of things.
AP, what's going on with your camera?
I don't know. It does that sometimes.
It's like going black and kind of.
It does that with Ecamm specifically.
Yeah,
not sure why.
Yeah, it happens when I have different tabs open for too many and load stuff in them. I guess.
Oh, so
I need to really clean up my storage and maybe format or something. I don't know, or get a new computer, get a new laptop. I've had this forever. I don't know.
I was going to say on the point that you were making about Nabil, like looking into learning more about Christianity and then coming around to the viewpoint of like, okay, Christians kind of have something with this, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've done recently is I've started to look into Islam. Like we've, as you guys know, if you've been watching the content, like I've produced a few videos now on Islam. We're getting deeper, especially into the Islamic dilemma. I'm actually,
and they're doing well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be interviewing Gabriel Said Reynolds again, hopefully on the Trinity next. But it's so my experience so far has been there's a lot of bad stuff. There's a lot of problems in the Quran that
really
do tell. And they seem like I've looked into them a bit, and it seems like there's some like really serious problems, and like the responses, even the scholarly ones that I'm seeing in response to it, they seem to all be extremely problematic on a degree that I'm not seeing with Christian apologetics. Now, and one thing that it's made me think about is like, is this what my experience in looking into Islam, like, is this how atheists see apologists, like Christian apologists? Like, are we this like incapable of defending our beliefs? What is the perspective of an atheist when they see Christians trying to defend their religion versus a Muslim trying to defend the Quran or Islam? But I guess I can just ask you, AP, what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. You should ask an atheist.
No, he's saying you're an outsider of Christianity and Islam. So when you are thinking about Christian apologists and how they are dealing with issues versus Muslim apologists, he's basically saying, do they kind of come across in the same way, or is there a
difference?
Well, no, obviously, you have to say that so Islamic apologetics is significantly more advanced, where Christian apologetics is kind of,
Like weak.
Sorry, I can't do that. I can't possibly go on with that act. But you know,
I'm trying to address a serious topic. I feel like this is serious stuff. Like this is. You guys.
I know. No, it is.
Can't do anything for real. Can't do any like serious.
You will get this. I can't. You will get the same response from lots of people. I heard the same thing from others who were never Muslims, who were who were former Christians and who are atheists and who critique Christianity. I have consistently heard the same response, usually from people like this. I'm pretty sure that I heard the same thing from. Actually, I don't want to mention his name. He stopped talking trash about Islam because of all the threats. This is what you get. But the general observation is usually that Christian apologetics is very, very far ahead compared to Islamic apologetics, and that Islamic apologetics, Islamic preaching, Dawah, and all of that is heavily underdeveloped. Is very uninformed, has a very lacking, aspect of interacting with others and gathering experience. It doesn't have the same tradition. It doesn't have the same scripture. It doesn't have the logical aspect. Philosophy and logic is not something that is strong in the Islamic realm. Christianity is significantly far ahead. This is undeniable. People will, from all kinds of different backgrounds, will tell you the same thing.
And Cameron, since you're dealing with Islamic stuff now, you'll basically run into kind of serious people who can give you a serious response. But something you're also going to encounter if you're talking about like the Islamic dilemma stuff is just a bunch of Dawah guys going, "Oh, they're so stupid, it's not even worth responding to. This is so dumb. No one should take this seriously. No one should listen to this. It's such a dumb argument. We don't even have to think about this. No one listen to any Christians who are bringing this up. Just laugh at them because it's so stupid." Yep. And over and over and over again, and never actually explain the stuff. What do all these verses mean? Instead, they look for reasons to. Dawah is basically, if you're talking about stuff that could be potentially arguments against Islam, the only things they do, they either try to dismiss the argument or they dismiss the person. So they show that that you don't need to take the person seriously, or you don't need to take the argument seriously. So those are the main go-to moves. It's actually very rare to attempt a serious response to a serious objection. We're always looking for a way to just avoid it or sidestep it.
But on top of all of that, which what David just said, which was completely useless because he basically repeated what I just said, it would be to further address the essence of the and the underlying aspect of all of this would be that that Christianity, has a foundation, an actual solid foundation that goes back to a significantly very sophisticated religious scholarly environment 2,000 years ago, on top of which it developed an extremely sophisticated scholarly aspect and tradition. Once again, you have the Bible, which comes from the Jewish tradition and Jewish scholarship was ahead of its time compared to others in terms of being scholarly, was back then ahead of its time. On top of this entire tradition, you have Christianity built. Christianity kept up the whole tradition of developing and upholding this scholarly aspect of it, of deeply analyzing and early on discussing all of the theology and all of the doctrines, having all of them grounded in very old scripture, which you have. The Bible is huge compared to the Quran, which is a tiny book. Islam doesn't have any of this. Islam is not a continuation. Islam doesn't have the continuation from Christianity. Islam is a religion that developed in a 7th century polytheistic pagan environment where Muhammad came and started claiming that he was sent by the same God who came to the Christians and Jews. But Muslims don't have the Bible because although Muhammad claimed that the Bible, the Torah, the Injil, and the Quran were sent by the same God, they clearly quickly found out that the Bible is not in line with Islam, and if you follow the Bible, you actually will have to rule out Islam immediately. So they don't have the biblical tradition, they don't have the Christian tradition, they don't have the Jewish tradition. All they have is starting from an incredibly underdeveloped, undereducated 7th century pagan environment, claiming these cultures, and then from there on building. Islam is far too late to the game to have any solid foundation or scholarship.
All right, I appreciate that answer.
Pretty racist, though.
Yeah,
it was extremely racist. All right, let's try to get through some more of these super chats, and then we'll kind of close things out. We've got a lot more to get through, but let's do what we can. All right. Sorry, I lost my place. Sorry, guys.
You see, that's what happens.
That's what happens. I love that Muslims brag about pure monotheism. What if pure monotheism is like chloride, a deadly gas, but when it's with sodium, also deadly, it becomes harmless salt, which is life-saving? What do you think about that analogy?
Well, as a regular chloride consumer,
monotheism seems good, but maybe we need to look at... monotheism is still what Christians, the Trinity, is. It's still monotheism.
Yeah.
So, all right, keep going. Shake. We'll skip to the next one. AP, have you seen Herbert? Didn't show up to work today. Getting concerned about him.
I don't know. It's been quite quiet. I'm not sure what's exactly going on. It didn't tell me anything. I don't know.
That was Cameron. AP had a cricket in his room and he couldn't capture it, and so the thing just kept chirping throughout multiple live streams. Anyway, it got to where people were naming the cricket and stuff like that and missing it once AP murdered it.
Oh wow! Did you actually murder it? No, it just died because you didn't give it any water.
It's, by the way, it's Herbert to you, David. It's not it or cricket. It's Herbert.
That disgusting little thing.
Yeah, you were negligent toward the.
Yeah,
right.
I haven't seen him. I don't know where he is.
James Rivera says at the end of the debate, the guys that looked like he beat his wife said, "Come to his lamb," which is cutesianity. Craig won. He's just trolling.
Cutesianity.
All right. Grosia says, God bless you all. One guy apart from you guys that also matches Hijab's energy is Bob of Speaker's Corner. What do you guys think about him?
Bob is based.
Yeah, Bob's one of the guys who's been holding it down. And we pointed out before, the Speaker's Corner, the Muslims will not face anyone who knows the Dawah script now. It's like it's been beaten out of them. Now they will. If you show up and you like Avery showed up and Mansour didn't know who he was, so he actually started talking to him. As soon as he found out Avery knew what he was talking about, he says, "Oh, I'm not interested in discussing this. I don't like discussing this." And then he leaves, and then people point out to Avery, "Hey, he just went to the other side. He starts talking. He's looking for people who don't know anything, and he's over there talking to a woman." Avery has to go across there and hunt him down. Wait a minute, you said you're not interested. You're over here talking to this woman. What's going on here? That's how they all are now. So that's Bob. That's Chris. There's a bunch of even though the Muslims just typically completely outnumber them, man. It's catching up with them. These guys don't want to touch it anymore, and that kind of should tell you something, right? If at the end of the day, all you want to do in life anymore is just sit down and make fun of the Trinity, and you can't defend anything you believe, and you have to literally run from anyone who actually knows what you believe and can show the problems, that kind of sounds like you've got a false religion. That the truth can actually stand up to criticism. If your religion can't stand up to any sort of criticism, and you have to just slaughter people who disagree with you, I don't know. I'm doing the math here, but it's not looking like there's a good case for Islam.
Why do you call the guy Mansour?
You called him that. Or was that Anthony? Who was calling him Mansoor? His name was Mansoor. Someone started saying, was that you who said Mansoor? That was you, wasn't it?
I didn't say anything like that. Stop calling people names. It's not a Mansoor.
Brett says, felt like Craig didn't know enough about Islam details. AP, did you feel that way?
Not really. I think.
Yeah, I didn't really get that sense. I mean, he brought up some good stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't a topic.
Yeah,
pretty sure.
Right.
If it was a topic, he wouldn't have agreed to have a discussion or a debate on it. But he did get certain things right, which the average person would not think of, such as that early Muslims had no set doctrine and had severe disagreements on the nature of Allah, the createdness of the Quran. Especially the nature of Allah is one issue, but the createdness of the Quran, whether it's created or uncreated, was a big dispute and something that is not often talked about because it's kind of a complicated aspect of Islamic theology. But people killed each other over that stuff. He brought that up as an analogy to saying it's ridiculous for you to point out that us Christians having disagreements over something is an indicator that it makes no sense because you and Islam had the very same thing. So he seemed quite aware of Islamic stuff.
Yeah, and as AP's pointing out, it's not the topic, so you don't want to spend a bunch of time, but to avoid, you also don't want to let people get away with being completely inconsistent. So if you're applying a standard to Christianity that Islam could not stand to for 1 second, then you want to kind of preempt that sort of thing or respond to it and point out, hey, just want to be clear. You can't just say, oh, this is a bit confusing, because if so, hey, you've got some and you don't want to say, oh, they're disagreements, therefore it's a problem. You guys had disagreements as well. So if you want to argue that it's not true or that it's not coherent, argue that, but don't say stuff that would destroy your own religion if you applied it consistently. Because guess what? That's what Muslims are used to. They're used to going, oh, you have textual variants, and people not knowing that they have textual variants in the Quran. They're used to just being completely inconsistent. And that's kind of the issue. If people want to understand what's going on right now in the world of Dawah, they are finally being broadly held to some level of consistency, because there were individuals in the past 15 years ago who would point out the inconsistencies. The vast majority of people knew nothing about Islam and therefore couldn't say, hey, what you're saying right now actually contradicts your own religion. Now it's catching up with them and they're in kind of a panic mode. Hatun pointed this out in a recent live stream we were having. She pointed out that apologetics is built into Christianity. So you've got the command in 1 Peter 3:15. You're supposed to be able to defend your position. Islam is based around attacking everyone else's position, and so for 14 centuries it's you're pagan, you're pagan, you're pagan, you're pagan, you're wrong, Trinity stupid, this. They're used to attacking in every direction. They're not used to defending. They're not used to having to defend. And people don't even know what Muslims believe in order to criticize it. So Muslims don't have to defend this stuff. At most, they would have to defend it against a rival sect. So at most, a Sunni would have to defend Sunni views to a Shia and so on. But they're not used to having to defend all these other issues. And so what's happening now is they're getting really, really uncomfortable. And it's actually reversing Christianity, where for a long time, Christians get uncomfortable if you're attacking another person's position. So, I mean, I heard that from years. David, why are you attacking Islam? Just focus on defending your own position. So it's like, you have to deal with these false arguments that are filling up their heads and so on. So that's the situation we're in right now, guys. Muslim Dawah guys are comfortable attacking. They're not comfortable defending. They're being forced to defend. And so now they're looking for situations where, wait, I just get to go and attack the Trinity or something like that. But they're running out of space. They're running out of places where they can go where they're not going to be called out for their hypocrisy.
So AP, it looks like he dropped out.
Finally,
his camera just disappeared. So
he got overpowered by Hijab's arguments.
We'll keep going though. GTG says, God bless you guys. So happy to see you guys doing this for the glory of God. It really touched my heart. I did want to say I really appreciate you guys sending in so many super chats. We don't typically get this many super chats in our live streams. So I really appreciate that, guys. It really does help us. So Oscar123, to Muslims, we believe in one God who is love. This makes sense with the Trinity. Love is eternally shared between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God is, there we go. Looking good
Who's
now.
this?
Okay, you back? Can you hear us?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, here I am.
Great. All right, I'll continue the read the super chat. God is relational and wants a relationship with you. Sorry, I cut that off. Hopefully, did everyone get this? AP, you were gone for most of this. He says that God is love. That makes sense with the Trinity. Love is eternally shared between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God is relational and wants a relationship with you. So I guess in contrast to the Islamic view or Tawhid, you don't have that. You don't have God as a God of love from eternity past, which is one of the arguments that Richard Swinburne gives, who actually in the debate, Hijab was actually trying to reference Swinburne, but he didn't know his first name. Richard Swinburne, who gives an a priori argument for the Trinity based on similar considerations.
You know Richard Swinburne?
He didn't know his first name. He knew Swinburne, but he didn't. He couldn't remember his first name. So
I mean, apart from Flanagan, like who would be bigger? In
Richard Swinburne is like the. I mean, he's like the most important natural theologian of this century and the past century, probably.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like. That would be
like even more than Flanagan. Like Flanagan, he had some good stuff on Problem of Evil, but Richard Swinburne is like,
I'm talking about.
You that don't know.
I'm talking about like for people who, if you were at all familiar with the realm of philosophy of religion. Seems like if you're not really into it, but you've heard of some people, you're going to hear of Flanagan. If you heard about anyone other than Flanagan, you're going to hear of Swinburne and so on. And if you keep going, you get to the Adamses and so on. But I mean, if he thought he was going to bring that up, how would he not? I don't know. That sounds weird to me.
Did you, AP? Have you heard of Richard Swinburne?
Who?
Say Humst.
The first person I've heard of, I heard of William Lane Craig today. That's all I know.
Fair enough. What do you have in there? Is that vodka?
What? Who?
In this cup?
I was asking David. Yeah. What does he have in that huge?
This is iced coffee. This iced coffee.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I forget that it's like morning for you, basically. Yeah. So that makes sense. It would make sense for me to be drinking a whole bunch of caffeine, but ALC, can the panel shed some insight into the mysteries of Satan sneaking into the nostrils of Muslims every night? Genuinely curious on the implications. What?
That's Mohammed in the Hadith. He says Satan sleeps in your nose. Satan pees in your ears. He sleeps in your nose. When he hears the Islamic call to prayer, he starts passing gas loudly and running away so he doesn't hear it. I mean, it gets presented as this sophisticated by Dawah guys. It gets presented as a sophisticated system of pure monotheism. And if you look at it, it sounds like something that like a bunch of 4 and 5 year olds came up with playing in a sandbox. Hey, what if Satan pees in our ears? Oh yeah, what if he sleeps in your nose? That's what it sounds like. But it's all coming from Muhammad.
You think this is funny? Are you making you think a topic like Satan, the Shaitan, is a funny topic? You think this is not serious? This is obviously this is serious stuff. If you don't wake up in the morning to do the morning prayer early in the morning, then Satan will urinate into your ears. If Satan hears the call to prayer, he starts farting and running away. Then he comes back. If you don't say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before you take a bite from your food, then Satan joins in and eats with you. These are serious matters. We should not be joking about this stuff.
I did hear that.
I just wanted to point out that, AP, what you're ignoring is that it is a metaphysical matter.
Exactly.
I did hear that. It's mentioned, I think, in the hadiths that there were parts of the Quran that were taken out because Muhammad said that he was influenced by Satan to include them.
Oh yeah, well that's another. So that's in like Ibn Ishaq and Tabari and so on. I have dozens of sources on that. But yeah, I think you're referring to the infamous Satanic Verses where Muhammad was Yeah, it's one of the most embarrassing things there are in Islam. In fact, it's another situation where they'll do exactly like they do with the Islamic dilemma. Oh, don't listen to this. That's all been debunked. I have 50 Muslim sources on the Satanic Verses. You go back to the first century and a half of Islam, everyone acknowledged that this was true. Later Muslims, they actually, so anyway, the basic story, Cam, is Muhammad was really upset that his tribe wasn't converting to Islam, so he was longing for a revelation that would convince them to convert to Islam. And finally, he got the revelation he was looking for. It affirmed their pagan goddesses, Alat, Alus, and Manat, as real goddesses. And you could pray to them because they're called the exalted cranes, right? They're cranes in the sense of birds. But you can pray to them because they will carry your prayers up to Allah. So there are these bird goddesses who will fly your prayers up to Allah. Because keep in mind, in Islam, Allah can't hear you where he is. You have these hadiths where Allah has to actually get really close to you, has to actually descend into our world to hear what people are saying. So the idea was, well, you could just sort of, make things easy for Allah by praying to these pagan goddesses, and they fly your prayers up to Allah. So Muhammad delivered these revelations. He bowed down in honor of them. His followers bowed down with him. And then the pagans bowed down too. They said, Muhammad has finally affirmed our religion. Long story short, Muhammad comes back later and says that Satan tricked him into doing that. Satan tricked him, and he's receiving the revelation, and Satan...
Very important. Very important. Quickly, just a quick question: How many different gods influenced Muhammad? A lot.
Oh yeah, wow, that's pretty terrible.
Okay.
This is what I have to deal with when I'm talking about serious metaphysical matters. So anyway, it was horribly embarrassing. Muhammad has to come back and says, Gabriel just informed me that Satan tricked me, and so now I'm in trouble. And anyone can look this up because you actually end up with one of the clearest arguments ever. It's the History of At-Tabari, Volume 6, page 111. Muhammad says, I have fabricated things against God and have attributed to him words which he has not spoken. Why that is relevant is Deuteronomy 18:20 says, any prophet who speaks in the names of other gods or delivers a revelation that didn't come from God, that prophet shall die. So Muhammad would have actually been sentenced to death under Moses. So anyway, that was just taken as understood.
That's been corrupted though, right? That passage in Deuteronomy has been corrupted.
Well, that's the thing. They can't say that because, you could go Islamic dilemma and say Muhammad affirms Muhammad and Allah affirm the inspiration, the preservation, and the authority of the Torah. I specifically like that verse because their main go-to verse in the entire Bible for showing that Muhammad is in the Bible is Deuteronomy 18:18, that God's going to send a prophet like Moses. Deuteronomy 18:18. 2 verses later, you get... Muhammad would be a false prophet and would have been executed. So he can't possibly be the prophet like Moses. He would have been executed by Moses. And so it's just kind of funny situation. Anyway, how this ended up falling out of favor in Islam was in the first century and a half of Islam, they had a doctrine called Ismat al-Anbiya, and that's Allah's protection of the prophets. But for the first century and a half of Islam, the doctrine of Allah's protection of the prophets was that Allah will protect a true prophet from persisting in major error. So you could fall into some sort of major error, but God is going to bring you out of that error. He's gonna bring you out of it. So guess what? That fit the Satanic Verses perfectly. Muhammad started promoting polytheism. God sent a Gabriel to rebuke him and then brought him out of it. Eventually, the theologians changed the doctrine. They modified the doctrine so that Allah's protection of the prophets meant that Allah will protect a true prophet from committing any major error. He won't allow you to commit it. And once that became the theology, they had to scrub the story of the Satanic Verses because that would mean that Muhammad wasn't a true prophet since he committed the major error. That's the majorest of major errors. And so once the theology changed, they rewrote their history and they scrubbed that out of Islam. It's just amazing that you can have a story, everyone knows it's true, it meets all the requirements of historical, and then later theologians decide something, and then you completely rewrite your history. It's just, but that's Islam.
Just like Aisha scrubbed Muhammad's clothes. Anyway, continue.
That's what happens when you get an agnostic on your show.
Caveman Philosopher says, what are your achievements, Mr. Craig? What have you achieved, you hillbilly?
You probably haven't seen that, but there was a clip where Mohammed Hijab is sitting
clearly
with
stoned.
Sneeko.
He's clearly stoned out of
Yeah.
his mind.
Yeah, he's high on something, but they're talking about Alex Jones because Alex Jones just called Islam a pedo cult, and also said that Mohammed Hijab and Sneeko are disgusting people because of their advocacy for being arbitrary about child marriage and possibly allowing child marriage and all that. So he's sitting there, Mohammed Hijab, in the middle of the night, and he's like, "And Alex Jones, who is Alex Jones? What has he done? What has Alex Jones done? What has his family done? What has his wife done, Mrs. Jones?" it's so ridiculous. But yeah, this is the person we're talking about, man.
Powerful stuff. I love that line from David. All right, Gabe. Hey, David Wood and AP, love your work. From Gabe.
There's
Gabe, what's up?
We know Gabe.
What is Gabe? Is he a regular of y'all's channel, I suppose?
Yeah. He also met us in Ohio. So, yeah.
Okay, Ultra Goku. What do you guys think about the Sam and CP drama? What is that?
I haven't followed that at all. But
who is CP?
That's Christian Prince. But remember remember what I said earlier, that because everyone is switching modes into more become entrenched in your group and attack everyone else. And I specifically said this is gonna be happening to Christians too. Matter of fact, I even said it. I think I specifically said even Christian apologists will stop being able to get along with other Christian apologists and they'll start attacking each other. Everyone's going to go through this right now. Okay. So long story short, in simple terms, a wolf on its own, when it's not in danger, can live on its own as a wolf. If there are other threats around, a wolf will pack up. Once a wolf is in the pack, it behaves differently because now you have a hierarchy and so on. So the way a wolf functions when it's on its own is different from the way it functions in a group. Human beings are the same in the sense of if everything's calm and nice and wonderful and things are going great in life, guess what? You get up, you go to work, you're having fun, you're doing your job, you come home, you listen to music on the way home, you get there, you have dinner with your family, you hang out with your friends and stuff, you watch some TV, you don't feel like you're being attacked. All of a sudden we get down to our time now. Everyone feels like they're being attacked all the time. You wake up and find out what you're being attacked on Twitter and so on. You go to work and they're pushing some political message. You go to the grocery store, they're pushing something on you. You constantly feel like you're being attacked in every direction. You can't go to a sports game now without being attacked on something. And so everyone feels like they're constantly being attacked. What happens in those situations is the tendency for human beings is to join a group that is going to be your protection against all these attacks around you. But since you're joining the group for your protection, you can't be at odds with the group. So you have to fall into line on every little detail of the group. But you're simultaneously, you're in a very aggressive state. And so you don't handle disagreements well anymore. It's going to be hard to form alliances with any sort of other groups. And so you can watch it. You can watch alliances all around you, like, Muslims and Christians will be united against LGBTQ or something like this. And this lasts 5 seconds. And Muslims and LGBTQ will be united against Israel. And that lasts for another 5 seconds and so on. And the alliances are breaking down as fast as they form, because once you're in that aggressive mental state, you don't get along well with other people. So anyway, point is, everyone's going through this right now. Whoever can actually come up with a way of enduring it is going to have a decisive advantage in the future. Atheists are not going to be able to hold it together. They don't have enough common ground. Islam is not going to be able to hold it together. Most groups are not going to be able to hold it together. There's only a few that might be able to. But yeah, so guys, get used to it. Christian apologists are going to be blasting each other.
I find it so funny how David always gives a whole speech and reads a novel basically, and then goes like, "Anyway, the point is," and then he continues. However, so when it comes to Sam Shamoon and CP, I loosely followed the thing. I saw Sam's response. I saw briefly what CP said, and it's just, I must say, the advice to CP would be not to pick a fight with somebody like Sam Shamoun. If you have a disagreement with Sam Shamoun, you should sort that out in the most careful and peaceful way. For example, I had a disagreement with Sam Shamoun once. I wanted to say something negative about him. As soon as I uttered a simple criticism, he sent me a photo of my house. He said, "Careful, I know exactly where you live." So from that day on, I decided to be nothing but nice about Sam Shamoun. So this is just be smart about it and. But sorry, it's late. But seriously, for a second here, I would say that CP has had a very. He basically asked for it, and this is more of an internal issue of Christianity or of Christian community online at this moment. But CP was basically being out of line and provocative in a way that you just don't want to be with some other people who hold to certain doctrines in a very faithful way. And I think it was about time that somebody actually said something to CP. It was a matter of time until somebody starts responding to him and saying some harsh things to him. I hope they resolve this stuff. You don't want to see these powerhouses fight. But yeah. This is just how it is. And as David just pointed out, just the fact that we have disagreements online just shows that we are in the end times.
All right. So what we're going to do at this point, it is very late and my brain is starting to shut down. So I'm going to have to skip some of these super chats that have been sent in, unfortunately, and just get to ones that I think we can kind of comment on quickly so we can wrap things up.
Here's Terrence.
David, what are your thoughts on Kevin Dutton's hypothesis that the Apostle Paul was a psychopath?
Not familiar with the argument. Doesn't seem correct to me. Too many passages, both Acts and the letters of Paul, about Paul crying and having tears and so on and weeping over things. And so doesn't sound like a psychopath. He really sounds like someone who's just... the overlap would be a psychopath, once he decides what he wants to do, is willing to kill or do anything else to get it. And look, the Apostle Paul was willing to kill Christians and so on. That doesn't just because there's a kind of overlap doesn't mean that you're a psychopath. There are all kinds of people who are willing to kill for what they believe in.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, without lies, Islam dies. Based AP hashtag. That's the comment.
That's the best super chat today. Yeah.
Jordan Flores, AP, would you say that Christianity is about a foot ahead? I don't know what that means. I figured that was an inside joke.
He's talking about the foot of Allah.
It just sounds like a play on words, and I don't want to take it seriously. I don't know. But yes, it is very much ahead. Alhamdulillah.
More like a mile ahead.
Andy says, is there a distinction between someone like Hijab who focuses on theology and others who may take a more philosophical approach? I thought Hijab was supposed to be the philosophical approach. Like, he's getting his PhD on the argument from contingency, which is a philosophical argument. Like, isn't he supposed to represent the philosophical side of things?
That should tell you a lot, man.
Yeah, it's just, guys, it's just different. I mean, a Christian or an atheist or a Hindu or a Jew or whoever goes into philosophy, it's usually because you're interested in philosophy. In Islam, everything is for show. So Hijab is not pursuing his studies because he's really interested in the issues. It's all for show. It's all just, oh, look, I have this degree or I have that degree. And it's all just to puff up yourself, and that's and so just something comes across as inauthentic about it whenever you get in a discussion. And so if you see Mohammed Hijab having a discussion with William Lane Craig or something like that, it's going to be very clear he doesn't know what he's talking about, and everything is just, what can I get out of this? There's never I'm pursuing truth for the sake of truth. It's what can I get out of this?
There is actually one thing which is strong evidence supporting this, which is David will remember. We both when we were talking about this upcoming debate, we were speculating that Mohammed Hijab will, during this debate, or after this debate, emphasize how and William Lane Craig is the best Christian apologist to exist ever or in our time, and he's one of the best, and this and that. He will not just sweet talk, but elevate William Lane Craig to such a high position to then make it look like, look, he's the best ever. Yes, I am happy to admit it. And I debated him, and he was unable to defend Christianity. You see, this is what I did. We were predicting that he would do this, and he did exactly that at the end of the debate during his closing statement. Plus, he also did it afterward on social media. I just checked his ex earlier, and he was like, if William Lane Craig cannot defend the Trinity, then can anyone actually do it, or something like that? Basically, just
well, hold on.
Major guy.
There's no way he said that the way you said it. Hang on.
Something like that.
Hang on. No, there's no way. I'm saying there's no way he said, can anyone defend this? There's not, because that would be to invite challenges, and I guarantee you he's trying to shut down challenges.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, he was suggesting that nobody can, basically. And he was suggesting that clearly Craig is
best. Look what he actually said, because I was thinking that would sound like to other, like inviting other people, come bring forth your champion. Here's what he actually said. This is funny. What he actually said was, if William Lane Craig couldn't defend the Trinity, no one can. You see, there's a difference. Can anyone would be inviting challenge. Now it's, if William Lane Craig couldn't defend the Trinity, no one can. So now, from now on, hey, why don't you debate Sam Shamoun? What? If William Lane Craig couldn't defend it, why should I defend it against any of you? You're not on Craig's level. So it's he's a very predictable guy.
We knew exactly that this is what he was going to do. He was going to use this as an opportunity to be like, look, I debated the best Christian apologist to ever exist, and I showed him that the Trinity is basically false. Who else can do it? Now it's time to go this line.
And it won't work, because people are going to keep saying, why are you ducking all these other guys? Why won't you defend Muhammad? Why won't you defend the Quran? So he's it's not going to work for him.
And correct me if I'm wrong. As Christians, William Lane Craig, as fantastic as he is, he's not. He's known for different reasons, like the Kalam cosmological argument, the existence of God, and all that. He's not the go-to best Trinity apologist, right? That's not what he is known for among Christians, right?
No, but he's done work on it. He's not necessarily he's not the best. I wouldn't say it. And I don't think he would even say that like that he's the best either.
Yeah, so
there's two other people I would probably mention before him.
No,
Tim Paul is probably like the number one philosopher guy right now working on it.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out, like, if I would say that Craig is the GOAT on certain topics that he deals with, but even if you're talking about the Trinity, you could say Craig's done lots of work. If you're talking about specifically in the context of responding to Islamic objections to the Trinity and stuff, there are other people. There are other people here.
And my point here is not to undermine William Lane Craig's credibility or anything like that. Not at all. Not at all. He's amazing, and I have nothing but respect for the guy. The point here is just that this is a very deliberate mischaracterization and abuse and misuse of who William Lane Craig is and what he stands for by Mohammed Hijab, deliberately set up in such a way. Most Muslims, the Muslim audiences, they will have heard of William Lane Craig. They will not know others who specialize or who are specifically known in defending the Trinity, for example. They know about William Lane Craig. Every Muslim online who deals with Christian apologists in the English-speaking sphere has heard of William Lane Craig. So to him, this is merely about publicity, about popularity, about look, the greatest Christian apologist ever, and I debated him and he couldn't defend it, and I proved to him that the Trinity makes no sense, and now it is time to become Muslim. So that's that's
and again,
so
guys,
good.
everyone needs to be pointing this out, because you're gonna see this over and over again. Oh, we made fun of the Trinity. Now convert to Islam. Why? You guys will not even give us a single reason to convert to Islam. Why? Why should I believe that Muhammad was a prophet? Why should I believe that the Quran is the word of Allah? Explain that. They won't come near it.
All right, last super chat. Sam and CP are apparently good now. The convo is recorded. So there you go.
Oh. Okay, I take everything back.
Yeah.
David, we're not in the end times.
All right, guys. David, are you actually going to watch the debate, or what?
No, I'm going to watch it.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll do another debate review after you actually watch it.
Yeah. Second debate review after David has actually watched the debate.
I mean, it was an interesting choice on my part to decide to do a debate review that quickly after the debate. We probably could have benefited from waiting a little bit, but I thought it'd be fun to try it out.
We couldn't have. I think it was there was urgency to the matter, and I think that as David watches it, you might also find it beneficial to record a video on it or something, because it's just there is so much there. You could have so much fun with it. The clips that we just saw are one glimpse into the whole disaster that it actually was for Mohammed, Hijab, and Islam, and I think this is something that can be used in a good way to show how incoherent and how bad Islamic apologetics is, and how bad Mohammed Hijab is, honestly.
Oh, AP, we could also probably mention that we're going to plan a dialogue with you and Dr. Craig.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do that. We had a little chat,
nice,
which has nothing to do with Mohammed Hijab. It's just between me and Dr. William Lane Craig about, I don't know, me asking.
We'll have to figure it out.
Humiliating you.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the details of it yet. We just agreed to have a conversation. That's it.
Yeah. So that would be cool.
Yeah. I want AP crying. Wherever that is, I want AP crying in the thumbnail.
Inshallah.
Okay, I can make that happen. I'm pretty good at Photoshop, so
okay,
I'll make it happen.
Okay, that's good.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the debate and the debate review. And you definitely want to subscribe if you want to see more content, because I think we're just getting started on addressing Islam.
This is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning, guys.
And definitely check out Cameron's new stuff.
Karen's.
Check out Karen's new videos on Islam.
Check out Karen Bertuzzi. Got the best stuff.
You see here, David Wood, he cannot even say the name correctly yet. Proven it. Man.
All right. All right.